Chapter 446. After leaving the area where Azura was, Yi Sherwin once again embarked on his journey of exploration and money-making. Now that he had such a powerful curse ability, Yi Sherwin felt a little inflated. He no longer had to be careful when he was on his way. Instead, he walked in a straight line. With big strides, Yi Sherwin felt like he was the most handsome guy in this mountain range. Suddenly, the ground began to shake. Yi Sherwin lost his balance and fell to the ground with a thud. Yi Sherwin, who was shocked, jumped up from the ground like a rabbit. He turned around and saw a brass bell floating above the area where Azura was. The brass bell had a simple design and was engraved with various ancient characters. It floated in the air and rotated slowly. Just then, he could vaguely hear curses coming from afar. Under Yi Sherwin's astonished gaze, the bell suddenly fell. The shaking of the ground stopped and the surroundings returned to normal. Yi Sherwin was speechless. Yi Sherwin thought it was Azura's doing. He thought for a while and turned around again, ready to continue his journey. After all, there were still 95% of the area that he had yet to explore. He could return to Baiki happily after he was done. By then, he would have to treat himself to a good meal. Thinking of this, Yi Sherwin suddenly felt inexplicably excited. After all, he was a poor man. It was easy to be satisfied. After taking a few steps, a rabbit that was startled by the shaking of the ground suddenly jumped out from the bushes beside him. It then crashed into the tree next to Yi Sherwin. The rabbit could not help but roll its eyes and fall to the ground. Its legs kicked and twitched twice. Holy sh*t, it hurts. The rabbit quickly stood up and began to rub its head with both of its hands while speaking in human language. Yi Sherwin was stunned. He was even a little nervous because he was familiar with this rabbit. It was the rabbit that he had experimented with the effects of the curse previously. At this moment, the rabbit in Yi Sherwin's eyes had a huge debt of 63 soul coins. Naturally, it felt a little guilty when it saw its creditor. "Rabbit?" Yi Sherwin asked in a low voice. Hearing the voice, the rabbit immediately stopped rubbing its head and turned its head to look at Yi Sherwin. "Coo coo coo! Can't you talk?" Yi Sherwin was stunned. Squeak, squeak, squeak. Rabbit began to play dumb, taking small steps back with a vigilant look on his face. Suddenly, Yi Sherwin realized that the rabbit seemed to have forgotten that he owed it a huge sum of money. He instantly released a breath of relief in his heart. "It's good that you've forgotten." Rabbit looked at Yi Sherwin and muttered inwardly. He seemed to have met this woman before, but why did she look at him with such fear in her eyes? Was she afraid of him? With that in mind, Rabbit asked tentatively, "We know each other?" "Yes," Yi Sherwin said without hesitation. "How do you know each other?" Rabbit asked cautiously. "You owe me a spiritual material," Yi Sherwin said with a guilty conscience. "Impossible, I can't even afford to eat spiritual materials myself, how could I owe you a spiritual material?" Rabbit's bloodshot eyes widened in disbelief. "It's okay. You don't have to return it. I'm not a stingy person," Yi Sherwin continued to say with a guilty conscience. "That's still impossible. Tell me, why do I owe you a stock of spiritual material?" The rabbit asked stubbornly. "You ate it just now, and then you suddenly lost your memory." When Yi Sherwin said this, he was obviously not confident. Rabbit heard this and looked at the big tree he had just crashed into. He couldn't help but rub his head and fell into deep thought. Could it be that he lost his memory from the crash just now? That can't be. I've been cultivating for hundreds of years, how can my body be so fragile? Thinking of this, Rabbit couldn't help but raise his head and ask, "You really didn't lie to me?" Yi Sherwin nodded quickly. "You said it yourself, you don't have to return it." Rabbit said immediately. Yes, I don't have to return it." Yi Sherwin nodded quickly. "Then what else do you want?" Hearing that there was no need to return it, the nervousness on Rabbit's face immediately dissipated, and he continued to rub his swollen rabbit head. "Are you familiar with this area? Can you be my guide?" Yi Sherwin asked with slight anticipation. If there was a creature familiar with this mountain range as a guide, Yi Sherwin felt that her exploration progress would be much faster. After all, she hadn't opened up the map yet. She was shrouded in fog, and it was easy to walk into a dead end. In that case, she could only turn back and take a detour, which would be a waste of time. Hearing this, Rabbit raised his head and glanced at Yi Sherwin. Are there any benefits? I don't need you to return the spiritual materials, do I? Yi Sherwin said guiltily. You said you don't have to return it first, then made a request, so the first matter has been waived. This is the second matter, and there must be a reward. Rabbit said seriously. To Yi Sherwin, she could talk about anything except money. No matter how hard and tiring it was impossible to talk about money, unless she was the one benefiting from it. But without Rabbit's help, it would take her a long time to complete the task. This made Yi Sherwin very conflicted. After thinking for a while, Yi Sherwin said with a bitter expression, How about a piece of dry bread? What's dry bread? Rabbit asked doubtfully. An expensive delicacy. Yi Sherwin said her evaluation of dry bread. This sentence was not mixed with any exaggeration, because this was Yi Sherwin's actual evaluation of dry bread that was priced at 0.5 soul coins. If it wasn't for the fact that he would die from hunger, Yi Sherwin felt that he could go hungry for a long time. In this way, he could save 1.5 soul coins for a day, 45 soul coins for a month, and a huge sum for a year. Therefore, there was nothing wrong with the concept that dry bread was an expensive delicacy, and it was in line with the logic of the poor. Rabbit, who had never heard of such food, could not help but fall into deep thought, then asked curiously, Can you let me see what dry bread looks like? Let's finish it first. Yi Sherwin, who did not want to spend soul coins to buy it, could not help but answer. After all, he only bought dry bread when he was in urgent need and never stocked up. This was because every time he spent soul coins, Yi Sherwin felt a pain like his flesh was being cut. Then how do you want me to believe you? Rabbit suddenly glared. Why don't you try to believe me for once? Yi Sherwin felt that she was obviously at a disadvantage in the conversation with Rabbit, and she did not have any imposing manner to speak of. Rabbit rubbed its head and its eyes flickered. Naturally, it was very familiar with this mountain range, so it would not be a problem to be a guide. However, it did not know if it should believe the girl in front of it. Although it had lived for hundreds of years, Rabbit's social circle was actually very small, so it was not very sure if the agreement to pay for the work was trustworthy. After thinking for a while, Rabbit said with a serious expression, Do you provide food during the work? Hearing this, Yi Sherwin said without hesitation, No. Rabbit's eyes widened. Then what do I eat? You're a rabbit, eat grass. Yi Sherwin said as he pointed at the nearby weeds. Rabbit. I'm a rabbit who has cultivated successfully, I don't eat grass. That's for the lowly rabbits. Rabbit could not help but scold. Then what do you eat? Yi Sherwin looked stunned. Rabbit pointed at the top of a big tree beside them. Leaves. That works too. Yi Sherwin nodded. Thus, a poor player and a muddle-headed rabbit made an agreement to explore. From Yi Sherwin's point of view, exchanging a piece of dry bread for a guide was a huge loss. However, from Rabbit's point of view, it seemed like he had made a huge profit. After reaching an agreement, the man and the rabbit set off. During this period of time, Yi Sherwin told Rabbit about his plan to explore the entire mountain range. Rabbit did not mind. To it, it was just wandering around the mountain range every day, so it did not matter where it went. That afternoon, under Rabbit's lead, Yi Sherwin found that his exploration progress was indeed much faster, and he even bypassed a few areas with ferocious beasts. Rabbit's value rose in Yi Sherwin's eyes. This piece of dry bread did not seem to be a loss. The sky gradually darkened, and Yi Sherwin, who had been walking with Rabbit for the entire afternoon, was finally hungry. Looking at the hunger bar that had turned red, Yi Sherwin felt uncomfortable. Although he wanted to endure it, It seemed that if he did not eat soon, he would enter a weakened state, to the point where he had no choice but to eat. Yi Sherwin had no choice but to stop moving forward. Then, he found some dry wood, took out a lighter from his space, and lit the fire. Then, the man and Rabbit sat around the bonfire. At this moment, Yi Sherwin turned to look at Rabbit and said, "Rabbit, go find some leaves to eat." "Then what do you want to eat?" Rabbit asked curiously. "I will think of a way, you go eat first," Yi Sherwin said seriously. "Do you want to eat dry bread behind my back?" Rabbit glared. Yi Sherwin's expression changed obviously, and he became very guilty. "Only for one person. I'll just have one bite." Rabbit tried to negotiate with Yi Sherwin. "No, it's too expensive." Yi Sherwin immediately refused. Rabbit heard this but was not surprised. After all, in its heart, dry bread should be a delicacy that was comparable to spiritual ingredients, and the request for one bite was indeed a little too much. After thinking for a while, Rabbit rubbed its swollen head, turned around and went into the forest. After Rabbit left, Yi Sherwin clicked open the game shop, selected the food category, and selected dry bread. She stomped her feet, clenched her teeth, and bought one. Taking out the dry bread from her space, the bread was still steaming hot, and the smell of wheat filled the tip of her nose. Yi Sherwin could not help but show an intoxicated expression. She would never get tired of eating it. Thinking of this, she opened her mouth and took a bite. Chewing the bread, Yi Sherwin's brows slowly furrowed. "Why is there no taste?" Yi Sherwin did not believe it, and took a few more bites, but the taste of the bread still did not change, and Yi Sherwin felt like she was eating paper. This made Yi Sherwin stop eating, and she fell into deep thought. After a moment, Yi Sherwin seemed to have found the reason, and immediately opened the game shop again, and clicked on the food category list. "So I forgot to open the food list. No wonder the taste is bad," Yi Sherwin thought to himself happily. Looking at the many delicacies on the list, Yi Sherwin smiled sweetly. Drawing cakes to appease hunger, looking at plums to quench thirst, and the self-deception mode was immediately activated. When he bit down, the smile on Yi Sherwin's face froze. "Why is it still like eating paper? It's completely hard to swallow. I bought inferior goods." Yi Sherwin's mind suddenly emerged the truth, that she thought. After all, these dry bread were made by the players, and it was inevitable that there would be mistakes. Thinking of this, Yi Sherwin looked very angry. "I spent so many soul coins, and I actually bought inferior goods. How can I tolerate this?" Thinking of this, Yi Sherwin continued to eat indignantly. No matter how bad it was, she must not waste it. After all, it was too expensive. Chapter 447. At this moment, Lu Wu, who was behind the scenes, was also observing Yi Sherwin, who was eating by the campfire. After receiving the notification that Yi Sherwin had mastered the Azura Ultimate Path, Lu Wu thought that he had another super talented player, and was even ready to record it in his notebook. However, Yi Sherwin made him feel extremely embarrassed. It was Lu Wu's first time seeing such a poor player. As a battle team player, she was using her strength to embarrass the other fourth disaster team players and drag them down. Looking at Yi Sherwin, who was frowning and chewing on her bread, Lu Wu could not bring himself to record such a player in the list of talented players. He thought of Ao Jian, Qi Ming, Gu Yu and the others, and then looked at Yi Sherwin, who was chewing on her bread. The gap between people was revealed just like that. At this moment, Lu Wu's mood was very similar to Azura's. It felt like a powerful supernatural ability was mistakenly given to a husky. After some thought, Lu Wu decided to observe for a while more. Otherwise, he really could not record Yi Sherwin's name. He was afraid that he would tarnish the authority of this list. Sorrow, sorrow until one's head goes bald. Enduring the unbearable pain, Yi Sherwin forced the piece of dry bread into his stomach. At this moment, a smile appeared on Yi Sherwin's face. Finished eating, no waste, no loss at all. In her opinion, at least the amount of bread did not decrease. If the amount had decreased, she would have given a bad review. Now that the most important portion had not changed, she could still accept it. Yi Sherwin started to comfort herself after activating self-deceiving mode. After stretching, Yi Sherwin began to wait for the rabbit who had finished eating the leaves to return. Then, she started exploring again. Although it was already night time, to Yi Sherwin, time was also a part of money. Naturally, she could not waste it. A moment later, the rabbit's figure emerged from the bushes and came to the campfire. At this moment, it was holding a fat creature in its mouth that looked like a rat. "Rabbit, what is this?" Hearing this, the rabbit put down the rat and said indignantly, "I met this bamboo rat on the way. Because of a disagreement, I fought with it. I couldn't help but kill it. I thought that I shouldn't waste it, so I brought it back." Yi Sherwin was speechless. "You're a rabbit, can you eat meat?" "Nonsense, I'm a rabbit that has cultivated successfully. I'm not someone those rabbits that eat weeds can compare to," the rabbit said proudly. "All right, lend me a fire to roast it." With that said, Rabbit pulled out a branch from the bonfire and scooped up the bamboo rat on the ground. Then, he placed it on the bonfire and began to roast it. From Yi Sherwin's point of view, this scene was really very unharmonious. A rabbit roasting a mouse to eat, it was very strange. Yi Sherwin had no choice. It was a rabbit with a high level of cultivation, after all. Under the roasting, the bamboo-haired rat's fur began to burn away, revealing the flesh beneath its skin. A meaty fragrance wafted over, causing Yi Sherwin to feel hungry once again. How cruel! Yi Sherwin had never eaten meat after playing Battle Online for so long. The best thing he had ever eaten was the dumplings distributed by the game on the day of the Dragon Boat Festival. They were sweet too. At this moment, Yi Sherwin felt hurt. This mouse was so fat that the rabbit couldn't possibly finish it. Thinking of this, Yi Sherwin couldn't help but whisper, "Rabbit, why don't you share some with me? I'll get indigestion if I eat too much at night." Upon hearing that, Rabbit couldn't help but raise its head to look at Yi Sherwin. Then, it shook its head decisively. "That won't do. You won't even share your dry bread with me. Why should I share with you? Then what if I can't finish it?" Yi Sherwin tried to negotiate. "If I can't finish it, then throw it away," Rabbit said without hesitation. Yi Sherwin was speechless. Faced with such a realistic rabbit, Yi Sherwin couldn't think of any words to ask for food. He could only nod with a bitter face. After the bamboo rat was roasted, Rabbit began to chew on the bamboo rat's meat happily. Meanwhile, Yi Sherwin bit his finger at the side, activating the mode of drawing cakes to appease his hunger. So fragrant! The meat was fresh and delicious. In the state of YY, Yi Sherwin experienced the ultimate delicacy. He was extremely immersed in it. After a while, Rabbit seemed to be full and let out a long sigh. Then, it threw the completely eaten bamboo rat's bones into the bonfire. "How's the taste?" Yi Sherwin couldn't help but ask. "Not bad. It's better than the leaves," Rabbit answered honestly. Hearing this, Yi Sherwin had an envious expression on his face. "Then should we sleep now?" Rabbit asked as it rubbed its bulging stomach. "No, we have to continue exploring." Yi Sherwin immediately rejected this suggestion. Rabbit scratched its head as if it didn't understand, but it still nodded. "That's fine. I'm full anyway. I can't sleep." Thus, the human and rabbit put out the bonfire. Taking advantage of the bright moonlight, they began to explore the southern mountain ranges of the Luoho region. With Rabbit leading the way, Yi Sherwin didn't have to worry about encountering wild beasts. As a rabbit demon that had lived in this area for hundreds of years, it was very familiar with the terrain. Even at night, it didn't have to worry about anything. Thus, their exploration progress was greatly improved. As they walked forward, Rabbit suddenly raised its head and sniffed. Then it said, "There's a creature lighting a fire up ahead." Hearing this, Yi Sherwin also raised its head and took 2 deep breaths like Rabbit. Then, it nodded solemnly. "Although I can't smell it, I believe you." "Rabbit, are we still going over?" "I'm afraid it'll be dangerous," Rabbit asked after some thought. "Don't be afraid. If it's lighting a fire, I suspect it's a player. We're on the same side, Ye Sherwin said calmly. No, I'm scared. Rabbit, who was usually very vigilant, instantly backed down. Don't be afraid, I'll protect you. Ye Sherwin clenched its fist and encouraged it. All right, but go over quietly. Don't get discovered. Rabbit could only say that. Thus, the human and Rabbit continued forward, heading in the direction of the smell. After walking less than 100 meters, a faint fire suddenly appeared in Ye Sherwin and Rabbit's vision. They could even hear faint chatter in the distance. Seeing this, Rabbit immediately stopped and pricked up its ears to listen. Seeing this, Ye Sherwin also listened attentively. However, it was clear that she didn't have the rabbit's talent. She couldn't hear anything at all. Rabbit, I can't hear anything, Ye Sherwin said softly. Then let's get closer, Rabbit suggested after some thought. Closer. Then, the human and Rabbit began to sneak toward the bonfire in front of them. After getting closer, Ye Sherwin could finally hear their conversation clearly. The human and Rabbit immediately crouched down and listened attentively. Sigh, the king's rule forbids any clansman from entering Bakey. If the king finds out that we're doing this, we'll probably die a horrible death. A burly man wearing a gala sect uniform sighed in front of the bonfire. This is a serious matter. The elders had no choice but to send us to Bakey. After all, we've lost the Sungalite this time. Without this race artifact, it'll be very difficult for Ghani to seize the throne of King Luoho. There's still a group of people eyeing this position. A skinny man with purple patterns all over his face said immediately. Don't complain. At least Ghani seizing the throne of King Luoho is beneficial to us. If we're sent to Bakey this time, Ghani will repay us double if we manage to retrieve the Sungalite. A man wearing a black robe who was sitting opposite them couldn't help but say. It's too risky. If we head south, we'll have to pass through the land of the 9 luminaries. After entering Bakey, we'll have no destination at all. All we know is that the Sungalite is in the hands of the player clan. As for whether we can find it or not, that's another matter. The burly man sighed again. Think about it on the bright side. What if we find it? The player clan isn't strong. As long as we catch their senior members and threaten them, they'll naturally submit. After hearing the black-robed man's words, the rest of them stopped complaining. However, their expressions were still filled with dissatisfaction. From their point of view, the risk of going to Bakey this time was too great. If the king found out, they would definitely be sacrificed to the Azura. There was no chance of them surviving. Not far away, Rabbit and Ye Sherwin were eavesdropping on their conversation. At that moment, Rabbit suddenly turned to look at Ye Sherwin and said in a low voice, It seems like they want to capture the player clan. They seem to want to capture the player clan. Didn't you say that you're from the player clan? Yeah, I realized it too. I'm a little scared now. Ye Sherwin immediately turned her head and replied in a low voice. Then why don't we run? Rabbit suggested. All right, let's run. Ye Sherwin replied in a low voice. After reaching an agreement, the man and Rabbit slowly got up from the ground and prepared to retreat. At that moment, the black-robed man in front of the bonfire suddenly raised his eyebrows. Then, his figure disappeared on the spot. When he reappeared, he was already standing in front of Ye Sherwin and Rabbit. Sneaking around. Who are you? The black-robed man said with a gloomy expression. Coo. Rabbit immediately activated her camouflage mode. She lay on the ground, picked up a bunch of weeds, and began to nibble on them. At that moment, Ye Sherwin was extremely nervous. The thought of having to return to Bakey if she died made her face pale. She rarely fought, so her mental fortitude was extremely poor in the face of danger. She subconsciously looked at Rabbit and then at the man in front of her. She said nervously, Coo. After thinking for a while, she resisted the urge to lie on the ground and eat the weeds like Rabbit. At that moment, Rabbit, who was eating the grass, suddenly choked and started coughing. The black-robed man's gloomy face also showed a hint of surprise. Then, his expression turned solemn. "You're from the player clan? Coo coo coo." Yisherwan tried to forcibly disguise herself. At that moment, Rabbit was the first to lose it. She spat out the weeds in her mouth and said with a sad and indignant expression, "How can I disguise myself like this? I've been exposed." Yisherwan also looked sad and indignant. "I was scared out of my wits. Besides, I've never learned how to disguise myself as a rabbit. This is my first time, please understand." Rabbit was speechless. "Now, I have something to ask you. Tell me where the leader of the player clan is, and I may let you go." The black-robed man looked at Yisherwan and said, "I won't tell you. Although I'm poor, I have a backbone." Yisherwan said without hesitation, "Perhaps you'll have to suffer a little before you speak." The black-robed man smiled and waved his hand at Yisherwan. A stream of purple light overflowed from the black-robed man's hand and appeared on Yisherwan's forehead. At that moment, a game notification rang in Yisherwan's mind. Game notification. You've been hit by the curse of target Jiamu, the art of pain. The mark of Azura has been automatically activated. This curse is nullified. After casting the curse, Jiamu waited for Yisherwan to wail in pain. Time ticked by. Jiamu and Yisherwan stared at each other, because the effect of the art of pain did not appear. This made Jiamu dumbfounded. Chapter 448. Impossible. At this time, Gani withdrew the Shura demon god shadow behind him and walked towards Yisherwan, looking at her in confusion. This aura came from the pig-riding lady below. Realizing that his curse had failed, Gani was extremely surprised and could not help but wave his hand at Yisherwan again. Yisherwan was speechless. Both Rabbit and Yisherwan could not stabilize themselves and were thrown into the air before falling to the ground. A game notification appeared. Yisherwan's face was also red. As a poor person, she usually envied other players who had mounts. This time, she really experienced the joy of having a mount. Then you can control them and make them our mounts. This way, it will be much more convenient for us to travel. Rabbit's ears flicked, looking very excited. The next day, the sky was just beginning to brighten. But it's such a waste. Rabbit looked at the 4 silly pigs with a face full of reluctance. "How about we roast them?" Rabbit could not help but suggest. It was not that they did not understand the shape-shifting curse, but Yisherwan's casting speed and the efficiency of turning 3 people into pigs at the same time could not even be described as terrifying. It had completely surpassed their understanding of curse spells. Bang! Phew, that was dangerous. Yisherwan let out a long sigh of relief. Yisherwan was instantly frightened. She looked at the approaching 3 people and hurriedly said, this was also the next goal of Yisherwan's exploration. In order to find out what was going on, Gani's figure flashed and appeared in front of Yisherwan and Rabbit. With a wave of his hands, the demon god shadow behind him stretched out its arms and blocked Yisherwan and Rabbit, who were rushing towards them. "I did not expect you to be so powerful. Why did you stop them from escaping?" At this time, Yisherwan asked curiously. Just now, she used analysis to look at them and found that they were all soldiers of various races in the Rahu region. At this time, Gani, who was galloping in the air, had a serious expression on his face. In fact, if Gani did not cast a spell on her and the game notification did not ring, she would have forgotten that she could use the Shura's curse. At this time, Rabbit and Yisherwan were both terrified, riding on the pigs in the opposite direction crazily. From Yisherwan's point of view, these 4 pigs were all humanoid creatures. Although they had been cursed into fragrant pigs, she still felt disgusted. One had to know that the Azura Extreme Tao was an extreme power that even he had never grasped. The reason he had lost the ability to speak was because he wanted to cultivate one of the Azura Extreme Tao's demon sealing. However, even after several hundred years, he hadn't been able to comprehend much from it. Not even the demon sealing seal had been born. Riding on the pig mounts, they advanced along the steep slope. When they reached the end of the slope, the 4 pigs leapt up at the same time, carrying Yishirwan and the rabbit over the steep slope and into the valley. When Rabbit heard this, he crouched on the ground with one hand supporting his chin and began to ponder. After a while, he raised his head bitterly and looked at Yishirwan. This time, Yishirwan's tried and tested skill failed. Yishirwan and the rabbit couldn't help but be stunned by the oppressive feeling. But this time, just like before, it did not have any effect on Yishirwan, who had grasped the extreme Tao incantation. No! Yishirwan hurriedly shook his head. Run! The rabbit quickly pulled on the pig's ear, trying to make it change its direction. Oh no, they're running away, said the rabbit anxiously. As he spoke, he pounced on one of the pigs, bit the pig's ear, and began to pull hard. Yishirwan often hung out on the forum. The north of the land of the 9 luminaries and the south of the land of Rahu, which was the area she was currently in, were the intersections between the two regions. This was the first time Jia Mu had encountered such a strange situation. Game notification. Using the Azura word spell on the target Jia Mu, the spell automatically identified transformation spell, and the target Jia Mu has been affected by the transformation curse. The Azura Extreme Tao has been controlled by an outsider? Yishirwan was stunned when he heard this. At this moment, Yishirwan suddenly raised his head and looked at him with a vigilant expression. During this period, whenever the curse was about to expire, Yishirwan would decisively cast the curse again so that the 4 pigs would never be able to escape. The careless man and the rabbit continued their journey to explore the southern mountain range. Seeing this, Yishirwan hurriedly looked at the 4 people from the Jia Luo sect and shouted. Gani, who was standing at the side, heard her and nodded. The shadow of the Azura demon god suddenly appeared behind him, and his body turned into a blue light, chasing after Yishirwan and the rabbit. The ultimate Tao of cultivation curse, Azura word. Therefore, in his opinion, it was unbelievable that this girl, who was obviously an outsider, had mastered the Azura Extreme Tao. However, their speed was obviously incomparable to Gani's. In a moment, Gani's figure appeared above their heads. In front of the army, the elder of the Jia Luo clan, who was sitting on the back of a ferocious-looking bronze-colored beast, looked at the fleeing rabbit and Yishirwan, and said in an indifferent tone, Gani, go and catch them. Beautiful. Rabbit gave Yishirwan a look of approval. Upon hearing this, Yishirwan hurriedly nodded. Then, he controlled the pig to turn around and run in the same direction. The war of the big regions was about to begin. With a mount, the speed of their advance was much faster. After one night of exploration, their progress was more than 5 times faster. This made Yishirwan extremely happy. At this moment, she was really helpless. Yishirwan was afraid that she would have to return to Baiki if she died, and it would waste a lot of time to rush back. Oh yeah, can you control them? At this moment, Rabbit suddenly pricked up her ears and looked at Yishirwan excitedly. Die! Seeing the 4 pigs fall to the ground, Rabbit immediately pulled one of the pig's ears and began to punch and kick it. Let me try. At this moment, they had already explored the central area of the southern mountain range, and there was a huge canyon in front of them. When Gani's hand left, a purple fang mark slowly appeared on Yishirwan's forehead. At this moment, another 3 figures appeared next to Yishirwan and Rabbit. Without hesitation, they attacked Yishirwan at the same time. Upon hearing this, Yishirwan smiled a little awkwardly. Don't scare me, I've only lived for 304 years. I'm still young, I don't want to die. Looking at the game notification, Yishirwan turned to look at Rabbit with a terrified expression. As the mark of the Azura word appeared, the 4 pigs immediately stopped in their tracks. Due to inertia, they rolled forward a bit more. Quick, turn her into a pig. Rabbit quickly shouted at Yishirwan. What the F***ck, she turned into a pig! Seeing this, Rabbit's eyes widened. If the first time was due to a spellcasting error, how could the second time be explained? Yishirwan thought for a while and then nodded. What about them? Yishirwan pointed at the 4 pigs lying on the ground in a daze and asked. She turned her head to look at the 4 fragrant pigs on the ground, then at the rabbit. She couldn't help but nod eagerly. With the mark of the Azura word, she indeed had the ability to control thoughts. Stupid, if they escape, they will definitely come back for revenge. This is called cutting the weeds and eliminating the root, Rabbit said with a serious face. At this moment, the countless bronze statues and soldiers in front of the army focused their attention on Rabbit and Yi Sherwan, who had suddenly appeared. Then, Rabbit turned to look at Yi Sherwan and said with a surprised expression, "You will turn into a pig." Rabbit was afraid that if she died, there would really be nothing left. It was too cruel. Hearing this, Yi Sherwan immediately turned to look at Gani and said, "Rabbit, the curse has failed." At this moment, not only was Rabbit stunned, but the 4 people from the Jia Luo sect who had turned into pigs were also dumbfounded. "Give it a try, give it a try." The rabbit jumped on the belly of a fragrant pig, looking very excited. Seeing the game notification, Yi Sherwan immediately looked at Rabbit and said, "It's a success! Pig! Pig! Pig!" However, as soon as they jumped over the steep slope in front of the valley and landed on the ground, they were dumbfounded. 3 marks of the Azura word appeared on top of their heads at the same time. Under the power of the curse, the 3 of them could not resist it. Their bodies instantly twisted and turned into 3 pigs in the blink of an eye. "If we eat them raw, they might be a little hard to swallow. Why don't we roast them?" "You have all become idiots." At this moment, there was only indescribable shock in Gani's eyes. Then, under Yi Sherwan's command, the 4 pigs stood up, and Yi Sherwan and Rabbit each sat on one of them. Just now, he felt the aura of the Azura Extreme Tao. Yi Sherwan. At this moment Jimu could not help but be stunned. The purple mark of the Azura word appeared. At this moment, Jimu's body began to twist uncontrollably. His black robe fell off and his body quickly shrank, turning into the pink pig in Yi Sherwan's mind. "You've become a pig." Rabbit was also shocked when he heard that. "You think you can defeat Uncle Rabbit?" Because an incomparably large army had appeared in front of them. These soldiers were very burly, each of them naked from the waist up. Their bodies were engraved with all kinds of Azura secret technique runes. Their bronze-colored skin reflected a faint metallic luster under the sunlight, filled with a wild aura. "I said not to eat, not how to eat," Yi Sherwan immediately explained. The mark appeared again. After thinking for a while, he squatted down and placed his palm on Yi Sherwan's forehead under her horrified gaze. "Rabbit, what do we do?" Yi Sherwan's face was pale. After venting for a while, Rabbit spat at the pig under him. Rabbit and Yi Sherwan, who could not stop in time, pig, crashed into the arms of the demon god Shadow. Skill hint: because the target's strength is at the beginner level of the Ghost Commander, the effect can last for up to 1 hour. No matter how stupid she was, she knew what the Rahu army had appeared here. Yahoo greater than over equal to a rabbit grabbed the pig's ear and shouted excitedly along with its rising and falling body. Red military flags fluttered in the wind, stretching from the valley to the back for a few miles. There were endless soldiers. Seeing this mark, Gani's body trembled. Game hint: using the Azura word spell on the target's Jimu, Jiashu, Jiashan, and Jiahui, the spell automatically identified taming spell. The target's thoughts will be controlled. The effect will last for 1 hour. This was unbelievable to him. Because the ability of the curse was directly effective on the target, there was no possibility of it missing. Game hint: because the target's strength is too strong, the limit of the curse is beginner level of the Ghost Commander. The curse is ineffective. All of you have become obedient. Yi Sherwan looked at the 4 pigs and said. At this moment, they wanted to transform into the pigs under them and run with all their might. After a short rest, Yi Sherwan and Rabbit set off again. Chapter 449. At this moment, not only Jia and I, but the Jia Luo clan elder was also extremely shocked. "Don't kill the rabbit. Lead the way," the tribe king continued. "It's here, he's under that rock." Sherwin raised his hand and pointed at a boulder not far away. Hearing this, the shadow of the Azura demon god behind Gani dissipated. He then looked at the clan elder and made a series of hand gestures. It was too fast. Little girl, tell me, why did the divinity give you the power of the extreme path? What did you pay for it? Hearing this, Gani's eyes were filled with dissatisfaction, but he quickly concealed it. Is it a divine-grade spiritual material? Jialu clan elder turned to look at Rabbit and asked. We don't provide food on the way. Elder Jialuo and Jianai were not surprised by this kind of method, but Yi Sherwan and Rabbit were shocked. You said you saw the Divine Lord and received a gift from him? Who? Elder Jialuo asked again in disbelief. At this moment, he seriously thought that he had heard wrong. Since this is an opportunity bestowed upon you by the divinity, you are an honored guest of our Shura tribe. We will not harm you. If you are willing, you can come to the Luoho Central Divine Palace. I will order people to take good care of you. If you are unwilling, you can leave on your own. However, this seemingly frail woman in front of him had actually grasped the power of the Azura Extreme Tao that he yearned for even in his dreams. After all, this was related to soul coins, and there was no room for negotiation. However, he did not expect the Divine Lord to be imprisoned by the Great Emperor. What's more, he was imprisoned in the southern mountains. But tribe leader, the supreme divinity, the Jia Luo tribe elder hurriedly opened his mouth, but halfway through his sentence, he realized the problem. The king was actually injured. Yi Sherwan nodded weakly. At this moment, the way the Jia Luo elder looked at Yi Sherwan changed. He was no longer as aggressive as before. When the tribe king heard this, he stared deeply at Yi Sherwan, after which, he formed a hand seal in front of his chest, and an invisible force immediately supported everyone on the back of the gigantic beast, causing them to float into the air. Tell me where you come from. Patriarch, are you all right? Elder Jia Luo hurriedly asked. Hearing this, the tribe leader nodded slightly and led everyone to appear in front of the boulder in a flash. What is this? It wasn't there when I was here, Yi Sherwan said with a dumbfounded expression. I'm begging you. Rabbit is only 302 years old. He's still young. This was Gani's first impression. The power of the great emperor of the eastern mountain. The tribe leader said solemnly as he gazed at the boulder. Phew, that scared me to death. They're too strong. They're even stronger than the rhinoceros horn from the neighboring mountain. It's too scary. I almost lost my life. The rabbit patted its chest, looking frightened. Is it fun there? At this moment, two figures galloped over from the rear of the Luo Ho army and appeared on the back of the bronze-colored beast. Lead the way. The tribe leader looked at Yi Sherwan again and said. Not only was the journey a waste of time, but it was also a huge waste of a box of dry bread. What a headache! A very precious spirit material. Meanwhile, Rabbit couldn't help but answer. He wanted to eat bread, so he asked me to use dry bread to exchange for his Azura word. Yi Sherwan replied in a low voice. When Yi Sherwan heard this, a dazed expression appeared on his face. Obviously, he did not expect that he would be let off so easily. Dong! Just at this moment, a pale gold, almost transparent golden bell appeared, and the Azura demon god's phantom image instantly dissipated. The tribe king's face flushed red, and he retreated several steps as he spat out a mouthful of blood. In fact, the tribe leader was also unwilling to give up, but he decisively gave up on the idea of meeting the Divine Lord. Where is Beiki? Upon hearing this, Rabbit's face revealed a curious expression. A moment later, Gani's figure appeared in the sky above the advancing Luo Ho army. He then descended and landed beside the tribe elder. Who is it? The Jia Luo tribe elder asked quickly. Although he had the strength of a ghost emperor, he was still a mere mortal in front of the great emperor. They were not on the same level at all. Beside him, Gani was completely dumbfounded and stood rooted to the ground. On the other hand, Rabbit was very excited and kept nodding at the side. In just a few moments, the few of them arrived at the rocky area that Yishurwan would need to spend a long time to reach. If the Divine Lord gave the power to the girl in front of him, then the Jia Luo tribe elder could completely understand how an outsider like her could master the power of the killing curse. Where's the Divine Lord? The tribe leader could not help but frown as he looked at the empty boulder. The power of the killing curse was actually mastered by an outsider. If he did not see it with his own eyes, he would definitely think that it was a joke. Looking at Yishurwan, Gani's emotions were extremely complicated. The shadow of the Azura demon god appeared behind him, its blue arms grabbing Rabbit and Yishurwan. Then, they and Gani rose into the sky and headed toward the valley where the army was. Tribe leader! Seeing the newcomer, the Jia Luo tribe elder quickly stood up and greeted respectfully. Then I want to go too. I'm sick of this mountain range. At this moment, the Jia Luo tribe elder spoke again. Tell me where you came from, and how did you master the power of the killing curse of my tribe? Gani's body trembled as he nodded. His figure immediately flew toward the back of the advancing Luo Ho army. Tribe leader, why would the power of the great emperor of Dong Yu appear here? The Jia Luo tribe elder's voice was trembling. Jealousy was the main reason for this. Thinking of this, Gani turned her attention to Rabbit. As an explorer, freedom was the most important thing to her. Of course, money was equally important. Because she was not hungry yet, she definitely could not spend the 0.5 soul coins. Huh? He was pressed under this rock just now, and only his head was exposed. Yishurwan was very surprised. It's very fun and we have everything. Recently, the Mansion of the Dead has been rebuilt, and many life players have returned. The prosperity of the past is coming back. Yishurwan replied with a look of longing. However, the truth was right in front of him, and he had no choice but to believe it. Hearing this, Gani turned to look at her. However, Yishurwan still shook her head. In order to master the power of the killing curse, he had trained hard and endured unspeakable pain for hundreds of years, but he still could not find a trace of the Azura killing curse. What's your choice? The tribe leader spoke again. Now that the tribe leader had spoken, he naturally did not dare to say anything else. Is there anything else? Can I see it? The Jia Luo tribe elder could not help but ask. He had countless guesses about the whereabouts of the godly Azura who guarded the land of Luoho. I met someone in the mountains, and he gave it to me. What, dry bread? The Jia Luo tribe elder was confused. Seeing this, the tribe leader made a hand seal again, and everyone's vision suddenly became blurry. When they recovered, they were standing on a vast mountain range. Under the giant rock? Looking at Rabbit, Yishurwan sighed and chose to compromise, and began to point the way. Point the way, take me to the godly lord. The tribe leader's figure also floated into the air, and then he looked at Yishurwan and said. Hearing this, the tribe leader took a deep look at Yishurwan, frowned slightly, and sighed. Can I go? Rabbit could not help but ask. It's fine, I can just eat the leaves. However, he knew that he could not do that, because this woman was of great value to him. Seeing Yishurwan shake her head again, the Jia Luo tribe elder felt regretful, but he did not force her. Yishurwan had no choice but to open the game map, confirm the direction, and point again. The black-robed tribe leader nodded indifferently, and then looked at Yishurwan. The tribe leader nodded, and with a wave of his hand, disappeared with the Jia Luo tribe elder and Gani. Thinking of this, the tribe leader said decisively, "Let's go." However, he did not expect Yishurwan to be related to the godly lord who had disappeared for many years. At this moment, Yishurwan was extremely afraid. If he was killed, it would be a great loss. Hearing this, Yishurwan nodded in agreement. Me too, I almost went back to Baiki. In fact, he also had his own selfish reasons for bringing Yishurwan back. Seal the godly lord. When he said this, even the tribe leader's heart was in turmoil. Gani quickly informed the tribe leader. the Jiao Luo tribe elder said immediately. Yi Sherwen looked at the pitiful rabbit beside him, sighed, and said, "He was not strong enough to go against the great emperor." "Is it really, the godly lord?" The Jiao Luo tribe elder's voice was trembling, and he seemed very excited. "I'm fine, it did not hurt me, or else I would have been long dead." Looking at the golden bell that disappeared, the tribe leader's face was flushed red, and he spoke in a trembling voice. Due to the difficulty of communicating, he did not ask Yi Sherwen about this, and decisively brought Yi Sherwen back. Yi Sherwen thought for a while and nodded, "Yes. Freedom." Yi Sherwen answered without hesitation. "Azura. Worthless." He could not imagine what kind of rare treasure could make the godly lord drool over it, and he could not resist the itch in his heart. "I don't know, I've never eaten it before, but it must be very delicious," Rabbit replied with a serious face. Hearing this, the tribe leader waved his hand, and the shadow of the Azura demon god suddenly appeared behind him. He swung it forward, trying to slap the giant rock away. Rabbit's body could not help but tremble, and he immediately lowered his head to pick up a bunch of weeds. As he chewed, he looked at Gani in confusion and said, "Don't worry, you are the fated one of the godly lord, so you are the Azura tribe's distinguished guest. I will never take away what you love," the Jiao Luo tribe elder promised with a solemn expression, because his final thought was to beg the tribe leader to help him remove the Shura imprint from Yi Sherwen's soul, and then integrate it into his own soul. "Where did they come from?" the tribe leader asked with an indifferent expression. After all, it was a fact that Yi Sherwen had mastered the power of the killing curse. At this moment, he had already believed most of it. Azura Extreme Path? The Jiao Luo tribe elder, who was originally indifferent, suddenly had an extremely solemn expression. He then turned his gaze to Yi Sherwen. Hearing this, Rabbit and Yi Sherwen were dumbfounded, but the Jiao Luo tribe elder and Gani's faces turned pale. "My home." Cough, cough, cough. At this moment, the Jiao Luo tribe elder's eyes widened, and he could not help but cough. "What is dry bread?" the Jiao Luo tribe elder could not help but ask. Then, he reached out and grabbed Rabbit in his hand. Just as he was about to kill her, Yi Sherwen hurriedly said, "Gani, Azura," he admitted it himself. In order to save Rabbit's life, Yi Sherwen could only tell him everything, but he concealed the fact that he had used the analysis ability. "Goo goo goo! Tribe leader, what about them?" As he spoke, the tribe leader pointed at Yi Sherwen, and then at Rabbit. At this moment, the Jiao Luo tribe elder and Gani were terrified. Therefore, the most important thing now was to get the reason from this woman. After thinking about it, Gani still did not kill her. It was not that he could not bear to, but he felt that it did not matter whether he killed her or not. Perhaps he could use Rabbit to control this woman. This kind of difference made Gani want to kill him on the spot. Hearing this, Yi Sherwen hurriedly shook his head and refused. Chapter 450. Baiki, Sinkhole of the Mansion of the Dead. With the departure of the Jiao Yao army, the whole of Baiki returned to its former peace. At the same time, Lu Wu announced the mission to rebuild the Mansion of the Dead. Although he could rebuild the entire Mansion of the Dead with soul coins, Lu Wu did not choose to do so. The Mansion of the Dead was the home of the players and held great significance to them. In order to let the players cherish the Mansion of the Dead, Lu Wu issued a quest for the players to rebuild the Mansion of the Dead themselves. Of course, most of the players did not know anything about architecture, so the reconstruction of the Mansion of the Dead still required Lu Wu to spend soul coins and construction materials. However, he changed the process to involve the players themselves. On this day, Lu Wu released a mission to rebuild the Mansion of the Dead. Server announcement: the task of rebuilding Hell has officially begun. Construction activity: reconstruction of the underworld. Mission details: after the retreat of the Jiao Yao army, Baiki has once again returned to the control of the Baiki army. During this period, players can look for building materials in Bakey to contribute to the reconstruction of the Mansion of the Dead. Mission tip: construction materials will be randomly spawned throughout the entire Bakey region. Different materials will provide different construction points. Quest hint 2. After finding the building materials, you can submit them to the sky pit of the underworld. There are a total of 182,142 buildings. Different buildings require different construction points to repair. Special buildings require more construction points. As Lu Wu issued the construction activity quests, the soul coins stored in the artifact space began to decrease drastically. They turned into construction materials that could only be seen by the players and scattered all over the land of Bakey. According to Lu Wu's settings, these building materials would be refreshed every 30 minutes until the Mansion of the Dead was completely rebuilt. At the same time, the shadow of a huge city appeared in the underworld's sinkhole. It was the Mansion of the Dead that the players had been waiting for months to rebuild. The only difference was that the current underworld wasn't complete. Instead, it was just a phantom city. At this moment, every building in the Shadow Underworld city was marked with a 0% repair progress, and below it was the total number of construction points needed to repair the building. Naturally, the players had to participate in the repair process. Moreover, the players could also choose which building to repair first. For example, if a player liked Tonggua's forging room, he could submit the building materials he obtained to the building shadow of Tonggua's forging room to increase the progress of the forging room's restoration. Lu Wu did this so that the players could participate in it personally and increase their sense of belonging. At this moment, all the players who received the quest, Rebuild Hell, were incredibly excited. Because they had been waiting for this day for too long. The live chat channel was bustling with activity. Happy! The Mansion of the Dead can finally be rebuilt. I'm now rushing back to the Void Ocean. Everyone, wait for me! As one of the earliest batch of players, the Mansion of the Dead has brought me too many memories in the past year or so. Starting from Brother Lu Mo and the others, I've watched it prosper step by step, and the number of players has also increased. On the day it was destroyed, I really wanted to kill the 9 Luminaries brothers. That's all for now. Everyone, let's work hard together on the way home. I miss Boss Boulder. Without his guidance, my alchemy skills wouldn't have improved at all. I've lost face for him. Those who are preparing to restore the Boulder Alchemy Association, raise your hands and work hard. I'm going home now since I'm mining in the 9 Luminaries. Is carrying bricks more important than the recovery of my great netherworld? Obviously not. F*CK. The F*King officials have finally started this mission. I've been waiting for a long time. If you guys don't believe me, I'm going to cry right now. Are there any teammates who repair Tonggua's forging workshop first? What if you trigger a hidden opportunity and get a weapon forged by Tonggua? Tongguaki. JPG. We must repair Bakey's palace first. Brother Lu Mo's residence must be rebuilt first. While you guys were chatting, a building material spawned next to me. I picked it up on the spot and threw it into the channel. Maybe I'm lucky, laughing emoji. To the previous poster, as long as you use the building material to repair Tonggua's forging workshop first, we'll be brothers with different fathers and mothers. After the mission was started, the players enthusiastically participated in it. Many players came from the Void Ocean, the land of the 9 Luminaries, the Kuelong Ocean, and even further places to Bakey. Although the mission to rebuild the Mansion of the Dead did not bring any benefits, the significance of the existence of the Mansion of the Dead was far more important to the players. With the return of a large number of players, Bakey, which had been deserted for a long time, regained its liveliness once again. At this moment, on the east side of Bakey, Liuli, the Wooden Tortoise clan was timidly looking at the waves of players who were running wildly outside. "Grandpa, what are they doing?" The little tortoise looked at his grandfather curiously. "Don't worry about them. They're just going crazy on a daily basis. You'll get used to it." the old tortoise said with a hint of nostalgia on his face. North of Bakey. The wood demons who had been hiding in the North Rocks for a few months were alarmed by the noise outside. They poked their heads out and saw that there were players everywhere outside. Although the players were only looking for the newly spawned building materials and did not do anything to them, the wood demons still cursed in their hearts. Why are these tree-chopping bastards back again? I can't live on like this anymore. South of Bakey, west of Bakey. The players once again filled the land of Bakey. Many of the clans of Bakey once again saw the joyous scene that they hadn't seen for a long time. The familiar psychopaths were back. Once again, they began to run aimlessly in the land of Bakey with smiles on their faces. Laughter, teasing, everything was the same as before. They hadn't seen this scene for a long time after the arrival of the 9 Luminaries' army. Some were nostalgic, some were gnashing their teeth, but they were very clear about one thing. The rulers of the land of Bakey had returned. Although they were crazy, they were undoubtedly the overlords of Bakey. From the moment they arrived at the 9 Luminaries' army, they had moved forward step by step. They had suffered setbacks, but they had never fallen. They were extremely arrogant, unreasonable, and unscrupulous. Their madness had made many of the clans of Bakey feel that this clan would be destroyed in the next crisis. However, they had overcome the crisis of the moment, the crisis of the Rock Nation, and the crisis of the Sea King with such arrogant steps. This weak clan withstood all the pressure from the outside world and became the well-deserved king of the land of Bakey. This proved their strength, and it also proved that they had the ability to do whatever they wanted. This time, with their arrival, the land of Bakey once again belonged to them. The familiar scene and the familiar figures. This day in Bakey was like the past. Everything seemed to have returned to the day when the players who called themselves the Bakey army first arrived. The players were still the same players, they had never changed. They would quarrel over the ownership of the building materials, and even fight over the distribution of the building materials. However, they were real and always full of energy. With their presence, the rain of blood fell, adding a trace of warmth to the gloomy and cold Bakey. Unknowingly, the clans of Bakey had long gotten used to the existence of the players. They inexplicably missed the days without them. This included the clans that were often bullied by the players. Since their king joined the Bakey camp, many of the clans even became very good friends with the Bakey players. With the return of their friends, many clans that were hiding in the mountains and underground also came out one after another. Looking at the players who were running around aimlessly, they were inexplicably excited. "Captain, you actually want to repair the grocery store next door first. Tell me, did you hook up with the grocery store owner's daughter? I've decided to use this material to repair the wine shop of the Wood Spirit clan. No one can stop me. If you disagree, take my hammer and hand over the building materials. I saw this building material first, get lost. Can you be human? I saw it first. A group of people came to snatch a piece of building material like dogs. Look at the mission panel. The repair progress of Tonggua's forging workshop is already at 38%. People of the great king of Bakey's residence, work harder, don't let them catch up. If they don't give up the materials, beat them up. The members of the Guardian Angel Guild are all idiots. Don't ask why, just beat them up. Angry. Ha ha ha, I miss it. I'm so happy to see you guys so crazy. Come on, cut the crap, it's the players' rules. Fight if you're not satisfied. Supporters of the Great Rock Association, unite and beat them up. I've just logged off and adjusted the automatic replenishment of the nutrient solution. I won't go offline until the Mansion of the Dead is repaired. All of you get busy. When you guys were BBB, I had already found 5 building materials. Lonely as Snow, Monolith Lighting Smoke. JPG. At this moment, many players started a frenzied fight against each other in order to restore their favorite buildings first. As a player said, if you and I restore the building I like together, then we are brothers with different fathers and mothers. Otherwise, we are enemies. Factions named after various buildings appeared in the chat channel. For example, the Great Rock Apothecary Association was the strongest in the universe, Tonggua's Forging Workshop was the best in the world, the Wood Spirit Wine God Alliance, the King of Bakey's residence suppressed the heavens and realms, the grocery store next door destroyed the world, the flower shop in the Mansion of the Dead sent you off, and so on. The emergence of competition increased the players' enthusiasm for repairing the Mansion of the Dead. In order to make their favorite building the first to be restored, the players actively participated and worked hard. With the players' hard work, the restoration of the Mansion of the Dead accelerated, and the players felt a great sense of satisfaction in their hearts. This was because they were participants, and it was their hard work that brought the Mansion of the Dead back again. This scene also made Lu Wu, who was behind the scenes, extremely gratified. This was because the player's sense of belonging to the Mansion of the Dead was more passionate than he had expected. Chapter 451. At the same time, the reconstruction of the Mansion of the Dead was in full swing. At the border between the land of the 9 luminaries and the land of Rahu, a huge army was slowly advancing into the land of the 9 luminaries. Since the players had warned them before, the 9 luminaries' brothers had also sent their troops to keep watch and prepare for war. When the mighty Rahu army crossed the border, the soldiers on watch immediately returned to the Dark Heaven Pavilion in the center of the land of the 9 luminaries and informed the 9 luminaries' brothers of the situation. At this moment, the 9 luminaries' brothers knew that the crisis they least wanted to face had arrived. Their eldest brother, Xingyao, had yet to break through the realm. Their chances of winning against the Rahu army were close to 0. However, they had no way out. If they were to surrender the land of the 9 luminaries' tens of thousands of years of foundation, it would be impossible for them to take it back in the future. At this point, they could only hope to negotiate with the forces of the Rahu land and give up some of their benefits to stabilize the land of Rahu's intention to attack. As long as their eldest brother, Xingyao, successfully broke through and went to Bakey to destroy the player clan, one of the brothers would advance to the Ghost Emperor realm. They believed that everything they had lost would be returned. After some discussion, the 9 luminaries' brothers immediately sent messengers to the Rahu army, hoping to come up with a solution. However, what the 9 luminaries' brothers did not expect was that not only did the Rahu land not agree, they even killed a few of the messengers they sent. The saying that no messengers should be killed when 2 armies are fighting against each other did not apply in the underworld at all. The forces of the Rahu land had used their actions to tell the 9 luminaries' brothers that it was impossible to negotiate. This was because this war was not only a war of benefits, but also a battle to select the king of Rahu. The forces of Rahu had gathered for this war, and the war would not stop until the 9 luminaries were destroyed. On this day, the horn to prepare for war resounded throughout the 9 luminaries' Dark Heaven territory. The entire territory's military power was deployed to the central area, and all the camps in the outside world were abandoned. This was because the 9 luminaries' brothers had no confidence in this war. Although the brothers had thought that they might perish with the passage of time, they did not expect the cruel law of the jungle to befall them so soon. If they lost this war, there would be no more 9 luminaries. At this time in Bakey, as the war horn sounded in the land of the 9 luminaries, the players who had received the news were ready to watch the war. Regarding this battle, the players expressed their opinions one after another. Watermelon_Taro. Everyone, guess who will win this battle? Of course, I bet that Rahu region will win. Laughing emoji. Shueli_the_strongest. There's no comparison at all. The land of the 9 luminaries is now in a half-crippled state. The glorious moon was killed by us, the glorious sun was bombed to death by the bomberman, the glorious gold was besieged to death by us, the Bakey army and the European server. Now the glorious earth is dead as well. On top of that, the 9 luminaries have lost a lot of troops in the war with us. Evil dog pouncing on food. That's right. Otherwise, the 9 Luminaries brothers wouldn't have thought of dragging us players down with them. Wandering sorcerer. Sigh, the 9 Luminaries were so strong back then, but it still came to an end in the end. King of War. I've been looking forward to this day for a long time. Unfortunately, it wasn't us players who destroyed the 9 Luminaries. Sighing emoji. Roasting_jade_hair_ while _hugging_Chang'e. Actually, I think it's best if the 9 Luminaries can hold on and force the land of Rahu region to retreat while suffering heavy losses. In that case, we can sit on the mountain and watch the tigers fight, then reap the benefits. Perfect. Laughing emoji. Crayon_Shinchan. Why are you thinking so much? Does anyone want to watch the battle live? It's meaningless to speculate. It's a rare battle between 2 territories, so watching it live is probably more exciting than watching a war movie. Anyway, we're not the ones dying. Laughing emoji. A_large_wolfdog replied to Crayon_Shinchan. Let's form a team and go together. Laughing emoji. Crayon_Shinchan replied to A_large_wolfdog. Then you should find me first. I don't think you'll ever find me with your IQ. Laughing emoji. Xiaoqi_ is A_mature_lady. Actually, everyone can take advantage of the situation while watching the battle. If you see someone with low HP, you can rush up and kill them easily. Laughing emoji. Friendly reminder, this is risky. It's suitable for players who value money more than their lives. Laughing emoji. Little genius_ye_Sherwin. Picking up money. I want to go too. Crayon_Shinchan. Come. Let's go, Bakey's sightseeing group. It's so lively next door. What kind of good neighbor are you if you don't go and cheer for them? In the official forum, the players were discussing the upcoming war between the neighboring land of the 9 Luminaries and the land of Ra. In the end, the players expressed their desire to watch the battle live. However, since they were going to watch the battle, the players did not plan to go as a group. After all, they were not going to fight. Instead, they were going as guilds or teams. At this moment, the construction of the Mansion of the Dead had entered the final stage. It was not far from completion. The players were not in a hurry, so they all set off toward the land of the 9 Luminaries at the same time. At this moment, all the snacks in the game shop were sold out. To the players, as a spectator, snacks were an essential item for spectating the battle. A spectator without snacks was not a proper spectator. Just like the battle between the demonic god and the Rahu Sea, the most important thing to the players was happiness. The outcome of the battle was not the main point. In any case, whoever wins the war in the end will be annihilated by us players. Their mentality was as stable as Mount Tai. Hence, as the construction of the Mansion of the Dead came to an end, a large number of players went on strike. The veins on Lu Wu's forehead twitched uncontrollably. Yesterday, he was very pleased with the players' performance. He did not expect them to be tempted by external forces and collectively go on strike. However, even Lu Wu was curious about the war between the 2 regions. He followed the players' perspective and began to move toward the land of the 9 Luminaries. At the same time, he stole a few packets of Bailey's snacks as consumables. At this moment, outside the Dark Heaven Pavilion of the land of the 9 Luminaries, the 9 Luminaries' army was lined up neatly, ready to face the enemy. Meanwhile, Chun Yao, Mu Yao, Shui Yao, and Hui Yao climbed to the top of the Dark Heaven Pavilion and looked down at the armored army of the 9 Luminaries below with a solemn expression. This army had once made great contributions to them, and had also helped them sweep away all the hostile forces from back then. This was the foundation of the 9 Luminaries. However, today, at the critical moment of life and death, they did not know how many of their followers would survive because they were not confident. They did not even have the strength to predict the outcome of their own lives. In fact, they could choose to abandon their army and their interests to escape this battle. Even if there were only 5 of them left, each of them had the strength of a ghost king. No matter where they went, they would not die no matter how pathetic they were. However, they did not do so. It was not that they were not afraid of death, but they did not want to live. They had already reached the peak, and had long thought of the day when the 9 luminaries' force would be destroyed. This was because in this world, no force could stand at the peak forever. There had never been one. The 9 luminaries' brothers would not be an exception. Do you have any thoughts? Looking at the neatly lined-up army, Chen Yao turned to his brothers and asked. Just as we 9 brothers have said, since we've built this foundation, we will share life and death, honor and disgrace together. We will never give it away. Huoyao said with a smile. At least this big region has been marked with our past glory. That's enough. Mu Yao could not help but laugh. Let's have a good fight. There's no such thing as eternal victory and invincibility. We will still lose and die in the end. It's just that it's earlier. No regrets. Shui Yao said with red eyes. Ha ha ha, this is my brother. I really miss the days when we fought together to conquer this territory. It's been too long. It's time for us to risk our lives for the future. While Chen Yao laughed, he waved his hand downwards and said, Let's go. My fellow soldiers, if you die in this battle, you're all terrifying. Roar. All the soldiers of the 9 luminaries' army raised their weapons in unison and roared in response to Chen Yao's question. At this moment, be it the 9 luminaries' brothers or the soldiers, all of them were mentally prepared. As they waited, an enormous army appeared on the horizon. The sound of heavy footsteps, the raised crimson Rahu military flag, the half-naked warriors, and the roars of countless bronze-colored giant beasts struck the nerves of the 9 luminaries' soldiers. Chen's eyes shone with a strong desire to fight as he looked at the approaching Rahu army. Since there was no way to avoid it, they could only fight. Then, he looked down and roared, Prepare for battle. Woo woo. The horn sounded. Roar. The soldiers responded in unison. Then, the armored army quickly formed into a formation to face the enemy. Countless armored soldiers came to the front and lined up neatly with their shiny black shields, forming a steel defense line. Behind them, countless cavalrymen leaped onto their mount. Huge black crows flapped their wings and carried the cavalrymen into the sky, waiting for the horn to sound. In the distance, as they got closer and closer to the mystic heaven region, the Rahu army began to adjust their formation. Countless bronze beasts sped up and gathered at the front of the army, forming a torrent of steel. The morale of the Rahu soldiers was high for this battle. Because after this battle, their king would be born. Countless Rahu forces were also prepared to kill the enemy and fight with all their might for the throne. Tribe King, we've entered the mystic heaven region. The enemy's troops have gathered. At the center of the Rahu army, the elders of various forces surrounded the Tribe King and reported the situation. Slow down and prepare for battle, the Tribe King said in an indifferent tone. The elder of the Black Demon race nodded and galloped toward the front of the army. At this moment the Tribe King spoke again. All of you, return to your respective forces. Don't stay with us. This battle is still up to you. The clan elders standing around nodded immediately. Their figures turned into flowing lights and sped toward the areas where their respective forces were located. After everyone left, the Tribe King suddenly turned to look at Luo Xiu, who was standing beside him. Are you ready? I've been ready for a long time. Brother Jiuyao will be the sacrifice for me to become a god. A ferocious smile appeared on Luo Xiu's face. As he spoke, the marks of the path of self-sacrifice and the path of physique flashed across Luo Xiu's forehead. I'll do my best to help you in this battle. Take care. Good brother, if I achieve the human sovereign Tao in the future, I'll repay you 10,000 times. Luo Xiu looked at the Tribe King solemnly and said, As long as you don't die, I'll just be the Rahu King. I'm not as ambitious as you are. The Tribe King shook his head with a bitter smile. Ha ha ha, if you weren't ambitious, you wouldn't have competed with me for the position of Rahu King. Luo Xiu could not help but laugh. As the two of them conversed, The two armies looked at each other from afar, and the distance between them continued to shorten. The War of the Major Regions was about to break out. At this moment, the spectators were also rushing over with snacks. Chapter 452. The players who only came to watch the show were deeply shocked at this moment. There were lives and there were death. Everything was progressing in an orderly manner, regardless of whether the players were there or not. Even without their existence, the trajectory of this world was still moving as usual. As the Rahu army approached, the battle between the big regions was about to begin. Under their joint attack, the two competitors at the Ghost King realm did not even have a chance to resist and were quickly killed. Since they were ready to sacrifice their lives, the next battle was to fight to their heart's content. This was the real war in the underworld. The moment it began, it was foretold that one side would be destroyed. It also meant that countless lives would wither after this battle. Shield kill. The 9 luminaries' shield warrior commander stomped his feet and roared in anger. Blood rained down from the sky as the Rahu King candidate's body was instantly torn into pieces. It had nothing to do with the plot or the main storyline, but it was closely related to their actions. The crimson waves of fire approached at this moment and collided with the 9 luminaries' shield formation that stretched for several miles. At the moment when the formation was in chaos, the 9 luminaries' cavalrymen who were already prepared began to charge. It was their existence that changed the fate of the land of the 9 luminaries. Under the state of physique cultivation, these demonized soldiers no longer felt pain. Every punch was thrown with all their might, and the violent force instantly tore a hole in the 9 luminaries' shield formation. The bodies of all the Rahu warriors began to expand. Air currents that resembled flames surrounded their bodies, and every soldier's eyes became extremely red. At this moment, it was a battle between soldiers and generals. Their strongest attack was a joint attack, and the power they could display was far beyond their own realm. Seeing this, Gani's heart tightened. He quickly activated the demon god Shadow and prepared to face the enemy. Boom! When the Rahu army waved the military flag and gave the order to attack, the crimson waves of fire spread from the back of the Rahu army. It was like an epic war scroll drawn with iron and blood. In the sky and on the ground, the scene of the two armies slaughtering each other could be seen. In this battle, they were fighting for victory, for their clansmen, and for the throne, so they didn't dare hold back in the slightest. They immediately revealed their strongest attainments in the Asura Tao, and they transformed into numerous Asura fiend gods that charged towards the place where the battle was the most intense. Everything they had done had pushed the land of the 9 luminaries into the great territory war instead of the inevitable direction of the game. Battle Online was not like that. Therefore, when they saw the war between the 9 luminaries' army and the Rahu army, which they had been fighting for nearly half a year, every player had the same feeling. Instead of saying that they were the protagonists of the game, it would be more accurate to say that they were participants in this world. Boom! At this moment, the hostility in the hearts of the 4 brothers had been awakened. Hence, at this moment, when the players witnessed everything before them, they couldn't help but be shocked. When the bronze giant beast attacked, all the giant shield warriors roared in unison. They leaned forward and held their shields firmly. At this moment, after the players passed through the barren grassland's teleportation point, they were gradually approaching the battlefield, the dark sky pavilion. This batch of shield warriors was the most elite military unit in the 9 luminaries' army. Every warrior had the strongest physique in the entire army. Competitors of the Rahu King of each race, make your move. No one would remember them, and no one would cherish their contributions. This was because they had pushed the structure of the big territory to change, which led to the outbreak of this war. Ha ha ha, 4th brother, I know what you mean. Let's see how many future Rahu kings we can kill today. Huayao immediately grinned and laughed. This was the combat strength that the 9 luminaries brothers had forged through 10,000 years of conquest. At this moment, their muscles tightened as they connected all the strength in their bodies with the giant shields in their hands, ready to withstand the impact. Everyone, gather together. Beware of being left alone. The demon god behind Gani turned around and roared at the rest of the competitors. Hordes of soldiers died worthlessly in this battle. Roar. The sound waves spread across the entire army in an instant. Countless shield warriors roared at the same time, raised their shields that were placed on the ground, and began to charge forward. One after another, demon gods of Azura appeared in the air. Let's begin. Roar. Fight. All the soldiers of the 9 luminaries roared. All of their flying mounts rose into the air and began to circle above the formation. Whether they were sincere or not, these were the words that came out of their mouths. They stood on a high slope and stared at the battlefield from afar, unable to look away for a long time. This was reflected in the fact that the natives in the game did not stay still like robots. Their lives would only begin to advance according to a fixed path the moment the players came into contact with them. The eyes of the soldiers from both armies were bloodshot as the attacks on each other gradually intensified. The brothers were telepathically connected. There was no need for words as they followed Chen Yao and launched their attacks. Rows of Rahu soldiers were instantly sent flying. Madman clan. Kill. Even the battle-hardened players were shocked by this scene. At this moment, the competitor's face was obviously filled with shock. The players who witnessed this scene from afar were also shocked. Every second, a large number of soldiers would fall, but not a single soldier would be shocked by this. Even their fear had faded at this moment. This was because they lived in a world where the strong preyed on the weak. That was why they had thought about their future. The eyes of the Raha soldiers were bloodshot as they began to punch the giant shields in a frenzy. Players often mentioned in the forum that one of the most admirable things about Battle Online was its complete worldview. In the distance, as the battle intensified, the commanders of both armies had joined the fray as well. Praying to the gods for protection was the stupidest thing to do if one wanted to live. However, the players had always killed the 9 luminaries brothers who were alone. They had never thought that they could be so destructive when they joined forces. The few of them immediately approached Gani when they heard him. Seeing this, Chen Yao grinned ferociously and suddenly charged toward Gani. When the players leaped over the steep slope in front of the Mystic Heaven territory and could clearly see the 2 armies fighting, they were all shocked by what they saw. This was the bloody and cruel war of conquest in a large territory. In the distance, they were different from the 9 luminaries brothers. Although there were many forces in the Rahuland, they were ultimately of the same clan. They would not start a war unless there was a huge conflict between them. At this moment, blue and red waves of fire collided. Deafening battle cries were heard on the vast battlefield. Their voices echoed in every corner of the battlefield. Brothers, I heard that Rahu is participating in this battle to become the Lord of the Abyssal Prefect. Even if they were to lose this battle, they would never retreat. The Lord of Rahu had begun. Demonization. All the soldiers entered the demonized state as their physical strength increased continuously. As the defenders, the 9 luminaries' army was ready for battle. The giant shield warriors were at the forefront of the battle. The fear in Chen Yao and the others who were standing on the top floor of the Mystic Heaven Pavilion had faded. All that was left was a strong desire to fight. Soldiers were fighting with all their might as far as their eyes could see. The war between the 2 territories had officially begun. In terms of combat experience, they were far behind the 4 9 luminaries brothers. It was not a joke to say that lives were as worthless as grass in a war. It was the most appropriate description for every soldier. The 4 brothers roared in unison. The ground beneath their feet cracked instantly as they turned into 4 streams of light and charged toward the Azura demon god's projection. The battle was even crueler. All the soldiers had no choice but to fight to the death because they knew that the moment they fell, they would become a lowly corpse that was trampled on by others. Ha ha ha, the first one! Hui Yao roared in excitement. He looked up at the sky and licked the falling blood rain. Seeing this, Huayao and the others followed Chen Yao and descended. They were ready to fight to the death with their fourth brother. As his voice fell, countless figures rose into the air around the battlefield and charged toward the place where the battle was the fiercest. These competitors were like Jia Mu. They were the most outstanding representatives of their respective clans. They were also the most promising competitors of their clans. Seeing the Azura demon god's projection approaching, Chen Yao, who was at the back of the 9 luminaries' army, grinned evilly. It was just like the oath of allegiance they swore to their king the moment they chose to become soldiers. The 9 luminaries were never one person, but 9. Yaluo clan, kill. However, the 4 brothers had already appeared beside him. Each of them grabbed a part of his body and exerted their strength at the same time. They trusted Gani very much because they knew that Gani was the strongest among the candidates for King Luoho. To die in battle. It was one of the best endings for them because they were soldiers, and more importantly, warriors. Even though they were not there yet, the deafening battle cries coming from afar were equally shocking. However, to his surprise, Chen Yao and the other 3 changed their direction at the same time as they approached. The 4 of them punched and destroyed the demon god's projection on the body of a competitor on the right. They grabbed his body at the same time and tore him into pieces once again. After that, the dark blue ocean-like charging army attacked. Roar! The giant bronze beast raised its head and roared. It moved its limbs and began to charge as well. This was the true strength of the 9 luminaries' brothers. The ground shook violently at this moment. All the demonized soldiers began to move and roared as they charged forward. The scene was like a rolling wave of fire that surged forward. It was an oppressive feeling. The scene shocked the other candidates for King Luoho. The moment they approached the battlefield, they locked onto a candidate for King Luoho. The 4 of them attacked at the same time and instantly destroyed the Azura demon god projection. Dark blue flames that were completely different from the Luoho soldiers appeared on their bodies and slowly surrounded them and their mounts. Black Demon Clan, kill. Everyone fight. Chen Yao leaped from the top and landed on the ground. I'll die with no regrets fighting for my king. At this moment, the elders of the Luoho clan levitated into the air and shouted the order to attack. The only way was to kill all the enemy soldiers in front of them in the cruelest and most merciless way. It was to fight for a chance of survival for themselves and their own forces. At the back of the Luoho army, the tribe leader looked at the battlefield and said calmly, "Kill!" The cruel truth of war was embellished with fresh blood on the vast battlefield. In terms of combat experience, the brothers had gone through 10,000 years of battles. None of them were rookies, and they would not be scared off by a temporary disadvantage. The deaths of Yu Yao, Ri Yao, and the others made the players think that although the 9 luminaries' brothers were strong, they were still mediocre. At this moment, Chen Yao and the others had proven to the players that they were the kings of the land of the 9 luminaries with their bloodthirsty and arrogant 2 kills. Galuk Clan, kill. Chapter 453. The combat power that Chen Yao and his brothers displayed shocked Gani and the others. They thought that among the current top forces in the land of the 9 luminaries, only Xing Yao, the king of 9 luminaries, would be their match. However, they had obviously miscalculated this time. After killing this candidate, Chen Yao and the other 4 brothers immediately pounced on another candidate in front of them. Protect him! The demon god Shadow behind Gani immediately roared and pounced on Chen Yao, who was at the front. A crimson battle blade appeared in the demon god Shadow's hand, and Gani's eyes were filled with endless battle intent. Although Chen Yao and his brothers were powerful, it would be a proof of their strength if they could kill 4 of them. However, to his surprise, Chen Yao suddenly retreated the moment the battle blade fell. Then, Huayao, Mu Yao, and Shui Yao moved forward and quickly made hand signs. 3 giant blue snakes suddenly formed and coiled up, restraining Gani's attack. While Gani was frowning, Chen Yao suddenly appeared behind him. His right hand turned into a blade and slashed at Gani's neck. At this moment, Gani panicked and wanted to control the demon god's shadow to defend himself. However, the demon god's shadow was entangled by the three giant snakes, and he could not spare any strength to resist Chen Yao's attack. A blue flowing light flashed on his hand blade. The hand blade slashed through the air and a sharp sound was heard. At this critical moment, a few candidates beside Gani attacked at the same time and controlled the demon god's shadow to attack Chen Yao. Seeing this, Chen Yao revealed a bloodthirsty smile. His body suddenly flashed and disappeared on the spot. He appeared next to a candidate and slashed down with his hand blade. It could be said that Chen Yao did not intend to kill Gani from the beginning. The moment he attacked, he was already prepared to move. This was an absolute advantage in terms of battle experience. Crack! Chen Yao's hand blade hit the demon god's shadow outside the candidate's body. Cracks instantly spread all over the demon god's shadow's body before it collapsed and turned into specks of starlight. While the candidate was still in shock, Chen Yao's right arm moved like a snake and grabbed the candidate's neck. His left hand quickly followed up. Ah! Under the horrified gazes of Gani and the others, this person was split into two. Looking at Chen Yao, who was bathed in the rain of blood and grinning hideously, their hearts trembled. Ha ha ha, fourth brother, good job! Hui Yao shouted excitedly. He then manipulated the spirit snake to coil around Gani's blade and bite him. When the other two brothers saw this, they immediately cooperated and wanted to kill Gani. Seeing this, Gani immediately activated his strongest power. Many scarlet characters instantly appeared on the surface of the demon god's phantom's body. Its power suddenly skyrocketed and it flung Hui Yao and the other two away. At this moment, Chen Yao suddenly appeared beside him and punched the demon god's head, sending him crashing into the ground. Attacking and defending as one, the four brothers caused more than 10 people to fall into a disadvantageous position. This was the guarantee that the brothers would be able to become abyssal prefects. After tens of thousands of years of fighting, they had the experience to deal with any kind of battle. The 9 brothers started off as ordinary soldiers. Just like abyssal prefect Songshu, they used battle after battle to prove themselves. Step by step, their rich experience and techniques were backed by mountains of corpses and seas of blood. Risking life killer moves were as easy as eating and drinking in their battles. They had already become a part of their lives. Coupled with the brothers' absolute trust and tacit cooperation, they were fearless when they attacked together. At this moment, even though there were more than 10 contestants, they were clearly at a disadvantage. As time passed, 2 more people were killed by Chen Yao's 4 brothers. Using the strength of 4 people to fight against more than 10 ghost kings so arrogantly, this was what the brothers wanted to do to their heart's content. And the fear on their enemies' faces were the spoils of war they wanted to see the most. This scene was also seen by the tribe king who was behind Luo Ho's army. At this moment, he slowly spoke. It seems that the long period of peace has caused them to lose too much. Yeah. How can their battle methods compare to ours back then? At that time, even the weakest few people in the Rahu region were much stronger than them, let alone the 2 of us. Luo Xiu stared at the battlefield and said in a deep voice, "That's right. How can their battle methods compare to ours? Looks like their tribe elders will have to take action. If they continue fighting like this, I'm afraid none of them will survive." The tribe king frowned slightly. "No need, I'll go. After all, the 9 luminaries are my sacrifices." Luo Xiu let out a sinister smile. "Your strength is only at the Ghost King level. All right, cultivation level doesn't represent everything. Don't forget, I was once a god." As he spoke, Luo Xiu's figure turned into a black stream of light and flew toward the center of the battlefield. Looking at Luo Xiu who was leaving, the tribe king could not help but sigh. He was not worried that Luo Xiu could not deal with Chen Yao and the rest. Although his strength was only at the early Ghost King level, as Luo Xiu said, he was once a god. Even if he lost the power of the Azura Transformation Dao, he still grasped the power of the Azura Extreme Dao, the Self-Sacrifice Dao and the Physique Dao. At his peak, he had even comprehended the power of the Azura Law. Against Chen Yao and the rest, it was impossible for Luo Xiu to lose. He sighed because the immortal slaying path that Luo Xiu walked on was almost a dead end. Facing the attack of Chen Yao and the rest, Gani and the rest were extremely nervous. They could not predict the next attack point of Chen Yao and the rest, and could only deal with it. In this kind of battle they were beaten to the point where they could not fight back. But they did not dare to retreat, because they might become King Luohua in the future. At this moment, they were the focus of Luohua's soldiers. If the person who might become the king in the future ran away, how were they going to convince the masses in the future? Therefore, even if they had the determination to die, they had to grit their teeth and hold on. They had to use all their means to resist Chen Yao and the rest, and think of a way to fight back. When another candidate for King Luohua was torn apart, Gani finally could not hold it in anymore. The demon god Shadow behind him roared angrily. He activated the demon god Shadow with all his might and attacked Chen Yao, wanting to fight with his life on the line. At this moment, a figure appeared in front of him. Then, he only felt his vision go black. His vision quickly retreated, and then his body fiercely smashed onto the ground. Gani hurriedly got up, looked into the distance, and immediately saw a familiar figure. He had crimson hair and bronze-colored skin that looked like it was made of reinforced steel. It shone with a dark luster under the sunlight. His naked upper body was also outlined with dark red lines, and his gaze was extremely oppressive. Luo Xiu. Gani did not know much about this person. He only knew that this person seemed to have a great relationship with the king. When the king said that this person would also participate in the battle for King Luohua, Gani only had one thought, and that was to get in through connections. Because Luo Xiu had never displayed his strength, he did not have the prestige to match his strength in the various races. All the candidates, including Gani, looked at this person with disdain, and did not think that this person would be a match for them. But just now, when Luo Xiu sent him flying with a kick, he did not even have time to react, and that huge force shocked him even more. Then, a scene that shocked Luo Xiu even more happened. A scarlet mark slowly appeared on Luo Xiu's forehead, and the dark red lines on his body emitted a scarlet luster. Azura Soul. Seeing this scene, the shock in Gani's eyes could not be any greater. If Yi Sherwin's Azura word was the ultimate power of the killing curse path, then the Azura Soul mark that Luo Xiu displayed at this moment was the strongest ultimate power of the physique path. Looking at Luo Xiu's disdainful gaze, Gani secretly gritted his teeth. However, at this moment, Luo Xiu's gaze suddenly turned to the right. Then, Huayao's figure appeared on his right, and he reached out and grabbed his right arm. In the blink of an eye, Chen Yao, Mu Yao, and Shui Yao appeared around him at the same time, each grabbing a part of his body. Die! Huayao's arrogant laughter appeared. Then, the four of them exerted force at the same time, preparing to tear Luo Xiu into pieces. Then, a scene that surprised them happened. Because Luo Xiu's body was not torn into pieces, and he was still standing in the same place. Die! Chen Yao and the other three roared again, and began to tear with all their might. However, Luo Xiu just stood there calmly, allowing them to pull him. The ultimate power, Azura Soul, gave him the strongest physical body in the Azura path. Even though he only had the strength of an early-stage Ghost King, he was still not something that Chen Yao and the others could tear apart. At this moment, Chen Yao and the others' hearts were beating wildly, while a disdainful smile appeared on Luo Xiu's face. Then, he turned around and grabbed Huayao, grabbed his hair, and pressed him to the ground. Boom! Huayao's head was stuffed into the ground. Seeing that their brother was being controlled, Chen Yao and the other two ruthlessly swung their fists towards Luo Xiu's neck. Roar! Luo Xiu opened his arms, and immediately, the shadow of a crimson demon clad in armor appeared behind him, and instantly sent Chen Yao and the others flying. How is this possible, the power of Azura? Looking at the Azura demon behind Luo Xiao, which was more than 5 times larger than the demon behind them, Gani and the others were dumbfounded. The power of the demon they summoned came from the Azura path of self-sacrifice, and among this power, the ultimate was the power of Azura, which was also the ultimate power of the path of self-sacrifice. Just now, when Luo Xiao displayed the power of the physical body, it had already shocked them to the extreme. This was because in the entire Rahu region, other than the tribe leader and the other 2 old tribe elders, there was no one else who had mastered the power of the path of extreme. However, even the tribe leader and the others had only mastered one type of the Azura path of extreme. However, at this moment, this competitor whom they thought to be someone who had the least chance of success, had actually displayed the power of 2 types of Azura path of extreme. At this moment, Gani and the others fell into a state of disbelief. A guy without any race origin, had always been more outstanding than them. Die! At this moment, Chen Yao and the others closed in again and launched a frenzied attack. However, Luo Xiao just stood there, enduring the storm-like attacks. The moment he moved, Chen Yao and the others were once again sent flying. 8-armed Azura, Luo Xiao murmured softly. Crimson flames engulfed the entire body of the Azura demon. The demon behind him swayed, and 6 more arms grew from his back. Seeing this, the players who were watching the battle from afar were in a state of shock. F***ck, boss, isn't this the power of the demonic god? Sun Qi, who was also watching the battle, suddenly turned to look at Gu Yu and said. Gu Yu was also shocked. I also remember that boss demonic god used this ability when he was fighting Hidorigami. Why does he know it too? Could it be that this guy is also the disciple of the demonic god, your senior? Sun Qi immediately said. No, I think it should be the demonic god. He has also cultivated the path of Azura. Looking at Luo Xiao from afar, Gu Yu made a guess with a serious expression. Chapter 454. Rashu's sudden appearance in the middle of the battlefield shocked Jiaonai and the other competitors of Rashu King. Moreover, the strength he displayed shocked Chen Yao and the others. So what if he was an early-stage ghost king, as Luo Xiao said? He was once a god. The heights that he had reached were things that others could only look up to and yearn for in their lifetime. This was his confidence. He had a strong physique and a spell that was like the power of a devil. Just these 2 points alone made him invincible in an army of 10,000. What a pity that only a few of you are left in the 9 luminaries. Luo Xiao's lips curled up slightly as he looked at Chen Yao and the rest who were in disbelief. It's enough to kill you. In the face of such provocation, the hot-tempered Hui Yao took the initiative to attack. His figure drew a blue arc like lightning and suddenly appeared beside Luo Xiao. A blue ice crystal appeared in the center of his palm. 8th brother, you can't. Chen Yao immediately opened his mouth to stop him, but Hui Yao had already approached Luo Xiao, and it was too late to stop him. Die! The moment his right arm swung down, Hui Yao gathered all the strength in his body and slashed at Luo Xiao's neck. At this moment, Rashu, who had been standing at the same spot, finally made his move. The 8 arms of the Azura demon god behind him joined together in front of him, and a golden sun appeared behind the demon god's head. Barry! Luo Xiao murmured. All the light beams instantly condensed and solidified, shooting towards the approaching brilliant flame. Die! Hui Yao shouted hysterically as he ruthlessly slashed at Luo Xiao's neck. However, just like before, this attack did not cause any damage to Luo Xiao. At the same time, the golden beam of light suddenly descended and instantly pierced through Hui Yao's body. Ugh! Blood spurted from Hui Yao's mouth. Die! Die! Looking at Luo Xiao, who was almost invincible, Huadasling's eyes were filled with resentment. Trembling, He raised his hand again and powerlessly slapped Luo Xiu's body. Bang! The demon god's shadow flickered, and Hui Yao was sent flying like a kite with a broken string. Eighth brother! Chen Yao and the others immediately stepped forward and caught Hui Yao, who was flying towards them. Placing Hui Yao flat on the ground, Chen Yao and the others felt their anger rising. At this moment there was a large circular hole in Hui Yao's chest, and his internal organs had already been destroyed by Luo Xiu's attack. Wow! I'm going to kill you! Hui Yao began to vomit blood again. His expression gradually weakened, but his eyes were still filled with killing intent. Eighth brother, stop talking and stay alive! Chen Yao shouted angrily. Fourth brother, no one can look down on 9 luminaries, no one. What? Hui Yao's face turned ashen. Runes poured out from his body, crawling all over him, absorbing the last of Hui Yao's vitality. He can't be saved. The curse has entered his body, and his vitality will definitely be exhausted with the passage of time. Luo Xiu said expressionlessly as he looked at Chen Yao and the others. As Luo Xiu's voice fell, Hui Yao's pupils gradually became slack and his body gradually stiffened, petrified. Countless runes separated from Hui Yao's body and floated towards Luo Xiu, entering his body. Ah! At this moment, Chen Yao and the others completely exploded. They stood up and pounced at Luo Xiu like madmen. Watching their eighth brother die in front of them without being able to stop him made them feel extremely painful. At this moment, all they wanted was revenge and to tear the enemy who killed their eighth brother into pieces. Luo Xiu still stood where he was when Chen Yao and his 2 brothers attacked. However, the Azura demon god behind him twisted its body and punched at Chen Yao and the others. 1 punch, 10 punches, 100 punches, 8 arms waved at the same time, and their speed gradually increased. In an instant, the area in front of Luo Xiu was filled with crimson fist shadows. Even though Chen Yao and the others tried their best to advance, they still couldn't hold on for more than a few seconds before they were blasted away. Where's Xing Yao? Luo Xiu asked indifferently as he looked at Chen Yao and the others. Chen Yao and the others didn't answer. Even though their bodies were in pain and blood was flowing, they still stared at Luo Xiu. Then, the 3 of them attacked again. The fist shadows appeared again and smashed Chen Yao and the others back. Where's Xing Yao? Did he abandon you guys and run away? Luo Xiu asked with a frown. If you want to find Big Brother, reincarnate in your next life. Chen Yao spat out a mouthful of saliva mixed with blood and laughed sinisterly. Luo Xiu shook his head slightly. It's just a matter of words. It's a fact that you guys are no match for me. So what if we can't beat you? Do you think you can stop us from scolding you? Grandson. Shui Dazzling, who was standing to the side, said angrily. I'll look for Xing Yao after you guys are dead. As Luo Xiu's voice fell, the Azura demon god behind him suddenly left his body and pounced toward Chen Yao and the others. All 8 arms swung down at the same time. At this moment, the spectating players were shocked. They couldn't believe that the 9 luminaries, who had battled with them for half a year, would be killed at this moment. The crimson-red arms came crashing down, and Chen Yao and the others roared and swung their fists to meet it. At this moment, a figure suddenly appeared in front of Chen Yao and the others. He took a step forward and swung his right arm to meet the attack. An enraged blue dragon broke away from the arm and collided with the 8-armed Azura demon god. Buzz buzz. Crimson and blue energy waves spread outward, and strong winds swept up dust and dirt, sweeping in all directions. Roar! The angry blue dragon roared and collided with the crimson shadow of the demon god. At this moment, a smile appeared on Luo Xiu's face. This was the opponent he was looking forward to. The king of the land of the 9 luminaries, Xing Yao. Barry! Luo Xiu murmured softly. A dazzling sun gathered behind the 8-armed Azura's head, forming golden light pillars that pierced toward the angry blue dragon. At this moment, the angry blue dragon suddenly opened its eyes, and the surface of its body was instantly covered by icy blue crystals. The sound of metal clashing was heard continuously, but the angry blue dragon withstood the attack. Then, it turned around and swung its tail, sending the 8-armed Azura flying. "Big brother!" Chen Yao and the others shouted in grief and indignation as they looked at the figure in blue armor standing in front of them. "That's enough. Leave the rest to me," Xing Yao said. He inadvertently glanced at Hui Yao's body, and the anger in his heart was instantly ignited. "His Excellency Xing Yao, you're qualified to fight me." Luo Xiu nodded solemnly as he looked at Xing Yao. "I'll use your blood as a tribute to my brother's death." As Xing Yao spoke, the blue armor on his body began to shine with a dazzling blue light, and he suddenly pounced toward Luo Xiu. Upon seeing this, Luo Xiu took a step forward and merged with the 8-armed Azura's body. Then, he formed a seal with both hands, and a weapon appeared on each arm of the demon god, which smashed toward Xing Yao who was coming toward him. Boom! Dust flew everywhere. Under such a violent attack, Xing Yao's figure rapidly moved, breaking through the Azura demon god's attack circle. He suddenly closed in on Luo Xiu and fiercely punched the Azura demon god outside of Luo Xiu's body. Blue energy began to invade the demon god's shadow, and the 8-armed Azura's movements gradually slowed down. At this moment, Luo Xiu looked at Xing Yao who was less than half a meter away from him quietly with an indifferent expression. Roar! Xing Yao waved his left fist, and an ice dragon appeared from his fist again. It wrapped around the 8-armed Azura's body and began to strangle it. The 8-armed Azura demon god immediately stopped its attack, and its body trembled as if it was struggling to break free from the ice dragon's restraint. Black Sky Kill. Along with Xing Yao's angry roar, the crystals on the ice dragon's body appeared again. They shone like dragon's scales under the sunlight, and the ice dragon became tighter and tighter. Then, the entire ice dragon exploded, and the blue energy instantly engulfed the Azura demon god's shadow. Boom! The ground cracked, and the Azura demon god's shadow dissipated with this punch. Then, Xing Yao's fist broke through the shadow and smashed into Luo Xiu's face. Xing Yao's attack contained his anger, and the combat power that His Excellency Xing Yao instantly erupted shocked even Luo Xiu. His body was thrown into the air, and then he landed heavily on the ground. Smoke and dust filled the air, and a figure slowly climbed up from the ground. When the smoke and dust dissipated, Luo Xiu was still standing there unscathed. At this moment, Gani and the others in the distance were dumbfounded. They couldn't believe that this was real, because even if it was their clan elder, or even their clan king, they wouldn't be able to withstand this attack unscathed. But this unknown Luo Xiu had done it. The spectating players were in an uproar. This can't be real, right? I feel like even 100 of me wouldn't be able to withstand this punch, but this guy is actually unscathed? Is he trying to hold on? He's actually suffering from internal injuries, or else he would be too strong. Who is this guy? King Luo Xiu? Can anyone explain this to me? He's too far away and I can't analyze it. The players instantly discussed among themselves, and they were all shocked by Luo Xiu's strength. This was because from the players' point of view, His Excellency 9 Luminaries was the strongest combat power they knew apart from the demonic god and the other gods. However, at this moment, his angry punch didn't cause any damage to his opponent at all. This kind of strength was unbelievable to the players. Originally, the players had been looking forward to Xing Yao's arrival, waiting for his battle with Luo Xiu. However, at this moment, Xing Yao seemed to be unable to do anything to Luo Xiu. At this moment, even Xing Yao himself didn't expect that Luo Xiu would be able to withstand his punch unscathed. He originally thought that this punch would break through the defense of Luo Xiu's demon god shadow, but he didn't expect that the strongest defense wasn't the demon god shadow, but Luo Xiu's physical body. If that's all, then it's over, Luo Xiu said calmly. The demon god shadow behind him condensed again. This time, it was more solid and larger than before. Xing Yao didn't answer. Instead, he turned to look at Hu Yao's stiffened body, and a trace of sadness appeared in his eyes. When his gaze turned to Luo Xiu again, it was filled with determination. Big brother! Just as Xing Yao was about to attack again, he heard Chen Yao and the others' cries. He immediately stopped and turned to look. At this moment, Chen Yao and the others were looking at him with a desolate expression. Big brother, eighth brother said that no one can look down on the 9 luminaries. No one. After saying that, Chen Yao, Shui Yao, and Mu Yao raised their hands at the same time and stabbed them into their left chests, grabbing onto their hearts. Xing Yao's pupils suddenly contracted at this moment. No! Big brother, we're still too weak. We can only continue to follow you like this. Chen Yao let out a desolate smile as he crushed his own heart with his trembling hand. Big brother, no one can look down on us brothers from the 9 luminaries. No one. Shui Yao crushed his own heart as he spoke. Big brother, do you still remember the oath we swore on the day we established the 9 luminaries? To live and die with the 9 luminaries. Mu Yao let out his final cry the moment he crushed his heart. A sacrificial formation appeared beneath the trio's feet. Their flesh and blood began to melt rapidly. 3 blue souls left their bodies and pounced toward Xing Yao. They began to circle above his head while 3 blue threads appeared in their bodies and connected to Xing Yao. Ah! Xing Yao let out a cry of grief and indignation as he watched his 3 brothers sacrifice themselves. From the moment they were born, the 9 brothers had never left each other. They had overcome all difficulties and dangers along the way. However, at this moment, he was the only one left. He was the only one left. Ah! Xing Yao roared in pain as the ice crystal armor on his body cracked. A blue vortex suddenly formed and spun around Xing Yao in a frenzy. Piercing cold air radiated in all directions. At this moment, Xing Yao had completely lost his mind. With a wave of his hand, the 9 luminaries' army flag in the distance immediately rose from the ground and flew toward him, landing in his hand. He slowly raised his head and looked at Luo Xiu with a ferocious expression. Then, he raised his right fist and hammered the left side of his chest. He roared, "The land of the 9 luminaries shall be guarded by me. No one can look down on the 9 luminaries." In an instant, violent ice crystal airflow swept in all directions while Xing Yao pounced toward Luo Xiu like a ferocious tiger. Chapter 455. As Starshine attacked again, the 3 specters hovering above his head followed closely. At this moment, Xing Yao made up his mind. This was because he was not fighting alone. He was fighting with his brothers and his belief in the 9 glories. This was a battle of life and death. The 9 luminaries' war flag danced in his hands as he smashed it heavily onto the surface of the demon god's body. Kacha! The war flag shattered, revealing a sharp icicle hidden within. As the land of the 9 luminaries was rich in spiritual ores, the 9 luminaries' army flag was forged from the best spiritual ores. It was both a military flag and a legendary weapon. Die! In the midst of the roar, the icicle instantly pierced through the demon god's phantom and fiercely stabbed Luo Xiu's face. Blood slowly dripped down the left side of his face that was stabbed. At this moment, Luo Xiu was stunned. Ah! Xing Yao continued to roar angrily. The muscles on his right arm tightened as he lifted Rashu's body and smashed him onto the ground. No one can underestimate the 9 glories. Xing Yao's figure suddenly leaped up. Then, he gripped the icicle tightly with both hands and stabbed it towards Luo Xiu. Light blue ice crystals appeared in the air, and the surrounding temperature plummeted. This attack was unleashed in anger, and it immediately began to snow. Blue snowflakes fell along with Starshine's figure. The moment the icicle pierced Rashu's chest, the ground was instantly covered with blue ice crystals, and it continued to spread outwards. Countless icicles rose from the ground, forming a craggy iceberg. Luo Xiu's body was also slowly covered by ice crystals at this moment, and he was frozen into an ice sculpture. Ha! At the same time, the muscles on Xing Yao's body tensed up. He held an ice spear in one hand and lifted Luo Xiu up. Then, he suddenly pierced through the ice crystal and Luo Xiu's body. Gotcha! In an instant, ice fragments flew everywhere, and the ice crystals wrapped around Luo Xiu's body suddenly shattered. Xing Yao panted heavily as he stared at Luo Xiu with bloodshot eyes. He felt as though there was a raging inferno about to erupt from his chest, causing his entire body to tremble. At this moment, he only wanted to vent. However, at this moment, Luo Xiu suddenly reached out and grabbed the icicle. Then, with a forceful push, he leaped backward and landed steadily on the ground. The wound on his left chest was healing at a speed visible to the naked eye. Very strong. Just as I thought, no one who can become an abyssal prefect is weak. Luo Xiu looked at Xing Yao solemnly and said, "Die." Xing Yao's figure closed in again, his icicles suddenly piercing down. The target this time was Luo Xiu's head. Roar! A scarlet Azura demon god phantom appeared, and its 8 arms fell down at the same time. However, at this time, Xing Yao had completely given up on defense. His body was constantly suffering heavy attack. He forcefully withstood the crazy attacks and approached Luo Xiu. An ice spike instantly pierced through Luo Xiu's head. Die! The icicle in Xing Yao's hand spun rapidly, and Luo Xiu's head instantly burst open. Roar! At this moment, the demon god's 8 arms swung at the same time, sending starshine flying. At this moment, Rashu, who had lost his head, was still standing firmly on the spot. Then, the minced meat on the ground began to float and began to gather towards his head. In a short moment, Luo Xiu, whose head was destroyed, once again reforged his body, and he recovered to his original state. Be it the players or the Rahu tribesmen, all of them were dumbfounded. F***ck, this battle isn't fair. F***ck, this guy is definitely using a cheat. This is too fake. Boss Xing Yao is at the Ghost Emperor realm after all. How strong is the opponent? At this moment, the players were shocked by Luo Xiu's recovery ability. To the players, this kind of ability was simply unbeatable. The biggest advantage of the players was the human wave tactic and resurrection ability. However, after seeing Luo Xiu at this moment, the players were dumbfounded. They couldn't imagine how effective their human wave tactic would be against such a guy because the other party wasn't afraid of getting injured at all. It's my turn. At this moment, a scarlet trajectory appeared in Luo Xiu's eyes. Sacrifice. Destroy. His eyes suddenly looked at Xing Yao. At this moment, Xing Yao suddenly felt countless voices wailing in his head, and all kinds of negative emotions emerged. Xing Yao shouted hysterically, driving away the negative emotions in his head. While panting, his body undulated violently, but Xing Yao still endured the emotional erosion in his head. He raised his icicle and walked towards Luo Xiu step by step. At this moment, Xing Yao seemed to hear the voices of his brothers. "Big brother, will we die?" "Yes. But I don't want to die." "Then become stronger. Become so strong that no one can decide your life and death." "Big brother, why are we joining the army?" "Because this is the shortcut to becoming a powerhouse, the cruelest shortcut. Big brother, we'll listen to you. We'll go wherever you say." "Big brother, have you really decided to rebel? If we fail, we'll all die. We shouldn't be satisfied with the current situation. Since we've decided to become stronger, we'll challenge the man on the throne and take everything he has. Big brother, you know that we brothers will do whatever you say. We'll follow your lead and live and die together." "Ha ha ha, big brother, we've succeeded. From now on, us 9 luminaries brothers will be the rulers of this big region. Yes, from now on, no one will be able to threaten us. Big brother, can we defend all of this? Will there be a day when someone like us will challenge us and take everything away from us? Yes, but we'll use our lives to defend everything we have until death. Great Emperor, the 9 of us swear that from today onwards, the land of the wind wheel will be renamed as the land of the 9 luminaries. From now on, the 9 of us will live and die together with the land of the 9 luminaries. Ha ha ha, from now on, this is the land of the 9 luminaries, our home. We'll never leave or abandon it. Big brother, you've always said that the succession of dynasties is inevitable. Can we be the exception and exist forever? No. Sigh. I'm still young and I don't want to die. I hope this day will come later. Don't worry. Even if someone dies, I'll die first. I'll protect all of you. Hee, then I'm relieved. It's great to have a big brother. The oath he made with his brothers suddenly appeared in front of his eyes. A few tears fell from Starshine's crimson-red eyes. Big Brother went against the oath and didn't protect all of you. Instead, he lived until the end. Endless hatred, regret, and murderous intent filled his mind, driving away all negative emotions. Step by step, Xing Yao walked towards Luo Xiu with endless murderous intent and slowly raised the icicle in his hand. Boom! The Azura demon god swung its fist down and smashed Xing Yao into the ground. Then, its 8 arms danced at the same time and hammered the ground crazily. The cracks on the ground began to spread rapidly, and the ground suddenly sank. Red fist shadows appeared all over the sky. Under the crazy bombardment, Xing Yao's figure was blasted deep into the ground and disappeared. The moment Luo Xiu stopped attacking, a figure covered in blood leaped out from the ground. The icicle suddenly slid down and pierced through his body once again. Along with Xing Yao's roar, the icicle in his hand transformed into thousands of illusions and penetrated Luo Xiu's body crazily. At this moment, the Azura demon god's arms swung down at the same time and bombarded Xing Yao's body crazily. Even if his wounds opened up, even if he was bathed in blood, Xing Yao still didn't take a step back. At this moment, he had already made up his mind to die. In fact, from the beginning of the fight, Xing Yao already knew that he wouldn't be Luo Xiu's opponent. But so what? It was just death. The oath made by the 9 brothers back then was never a joke. Today was the day to fulfill it. He would use his life to burn the last of his fighting spirit and use his life to protect his previous oath. Amidst the crazy attacks, Xing Yao turned into a bloody man. Blood kept spurting out of his wounds, but Xing Yao's attacks never weakened. At this moment, all the 9 luminaries' soldiers let out a furious roar and attacked Luo Xiu's army in a frenzy. Our king hasn't retreated yet. How can you warriors be afraid of battle? This was the last battle. There would be no more 9 luminaries after this, so they would use their lives to illuminate the last glory of the 9 luminaries' brothers. Many of them had followed the 9 luminaries' brothers in the past and witnessed their rise. The 9 luminaries' army, a name that had once brought him supreme glory. This glory belonged to the 9 luminaries' brothers and also to them who had always followed in the footsteps of the 9 luminaries. Death was hovering around them, ready to wield its scythe to reap their lives at any moment. Courage was extremely valuable, but at this moment, none of the 9 luminaries' soldiers chose to retreat. This was the battle of a large territory. Everyone's future, the lives of thousands of soldiers, and the glory of the territories were all on the line. There was no right or wrong in a war. The judgment of right and wrong was a childish display in the underworld because right and wrong only applied to a peaceful and orderly world. Here, there was only the strong and the weak. There was no right or wrong. The battle of a large territory was even more so. It was only based on the strong and the weak. Victory and defeat would never be determined by right or wrong. It was cruel and real. The bloody battle scene touched the spectating players. At this moment, no one could laugh. All the players came with the mood of watching a show, but who wouldn't be shocked at this moment? Under the frenzied attacks, Luo Xiu's body was penetrated again and again. However, with the support of the ultimate physique, Luo Xiu's body was reconstructed again and again, eventually recovering to its original state. Starshine, on the other hand, was bathed in blood. His body was even distorted from the beating. Still, he did not retreat. Instead, he used his remaining strength to attack Luo Xiu. When the golden wheel behind the Azura demon god condensed light again and penetrated Starshine's body, Starshine finally stopped his attack. At this moment, he stood where he was in a daze, using the icicles to support his body from collapsing. His vision was already obscured by the bright red. He wanted to gather his strength. He wanted to fight. I'm so tired. Is the era of the 9 luminaries over? I can't accept this, brothers. I'm sorry. I'm actually the last one to die in battle. Can you forgive me? Wait for me on the path to reincarnation. Starshine slowly raised his head. At this moment, he seemed to see the scene of his 9 brothers choosing to join the army that year and determined to become powerhouses. He also saw the scene of them bathing in blood and killing their enemies, as well as the scene of them fighting for supremacy over the 9 luminaries, the 9 brothers, never forsaking each other, sharing life and death with the land of the 9 luminaries. No one can underestimate the 9 luminaries, Starshine murmured. The vitality in his body was completely exhausted at this moment. With the enemy's blood, we respectfully send our king into the cycle of reincarnation. At this moment, the hysterical roars of the 9 luminaries' warriors resounded on the battlefield. The era of the 9 luminaries was over. Now, it was time to put an end to it with the enemy's blood. All the 9 luminaries' warriors roared and pounced on the enemy. The war was not over yet because they had not fallen. Our king may be dead, but we, the 9 luminaries' warriors, are still members of the 9 luminaries and can represent the 9 luminaries. We are willing to sacrifice our lives to prolong the era of the 9 luminaries for a few seconds. At this moment, the spectating players could not help but clench their fists. Just as a certain player had said, we players are just that hypocritical, that we are that easily infected. At this moment, the players finally could not hold it in any longer. F*CKU. You're bullying us with numbers. F*CKU Rah. The 9 luminaries deserve to die, but they should die in our hands. Who do you think you are, Raho Army? Brothers of the 9 luminaries, we've been together for half a year. Today, I'll kill a few Rahu army soldiers to send you off. At this moment, the players roared and rushed down the hill towards the battlefield. This time, they did not care about who was right or wrong. All they wanted was to send off their opponents that they had fought for half a year. Chapter 456. The moment his life was depleted, the blood-soaked Starshine still maintained his standing posture, using the icicles in his hands to support his body from collapsing. At the last moment before he left this world, he left behind his obsession. No one can underestimate the 9 luminaries. Death was actually within his expectations. After all of his brothers died, how could he live on alone? Because the 9 luminaries had always been the 9 of them, not him alone. That was why he did not retreat. Instead, he used his life to uphold his promise and fought to the end. When the 9 luminaries' warriors used the enemy's blood to send off their king, the players who were watching the battle from afar were deeply shocked. At this moment, a player roared in the live chat channel, "Send off the enemy we've fought for half a year." Then, all the players could not help but rush to the battlefield. This time, there was no right or wrong. They were only sending off the enemy they'd fought for half a year, using the blood of the Rahu army's soldiers to bid farewell to the 9 luminaries era. The players' battle began once again. Figures from all over the mountains rushed to the battlefield from the hillside. There was no formation, no need for commands. The appearance of the players immediately attracted the attention of the 9 luminaries and Rahu army. This was an army that they had always looked down on but had never fallen. When they rushed into the battlefield and attacked the Rahu army's soldiers together with the 9 luminaries' army, all the 9 luminaries' soldiers were shocked. Why? They did not know why these player clans would help them. Shouldn't they hate them? Actually, every player had a clear answer to this question in their heart. Because we are players. That's why we act based on our emotions. Precisely because we are players, we do not have to worry about gains and losses like in the underworld hegemony. Everything is based on what we think, what we feel, and what we do. At this moment, all they wanted was to go to the battlefield and kill the enemy. Countless figures rushed into the battlefield. The rune warriors' bodies shone with dazzling gem-like brilliance. The Shura physique and rune body collided at their peak. As fists collided, sweat and blood dripped down. The wizards and the players used their staffs to guide the spiritual energy in their bodies, outlining magical formations outside their bodies. Countless spells streaked across the sky as they waved their staffs, blossoming like fireworks in the midst of the enemies. The ghostly figure wandered around the battlefield, using gorgeous movement techniques and sharp daggers to bring about a smear of captivating red. The Azura Path's demon god and the Hell Path's Night Killer's illusory body were fighting. The Night Killer's illusory body's roar was like the roar in the players' hearts, filled with determination. The legendary movement of the 9 luminaries era was nearing its end, and what the players had to do was to play the final elegy for it. Why? One of the commanders of the 9 Yao army asked in shock, as he looked at the player who had rescued him from the enemy group. Don't ask. If you ask, you'll know that these Rahu bastards are stealing our kill. We're not happy. The player grinned, then ran towards the Rahu warriors in front of them. Such questions could be heard everywhere on the battlefield, but the players' answers were always the same. I'm unhappy and want to kill him. Although the 9 glories should die, they can only die in the hands of us players. They deserve to die for Rahu's kill-stealing. The players didn't need a reason at all. They just wanted to vent their frustrations. The appearance of the players also shocked the forces of the Rahuland. Even the king of the army couldn't help but frown. The player clan? He murmured. Actually, he had never taken this clan seriously. He was only afraid of the North Sea and Baiki because he was a powerhouse that even the Rahu king, Rashu, couldn't fight back then. He only had one impression of the player clan. They were defeated by the 9 Yao army. The standard of judgment was that simple. In the eyes of the king, the player clan was just a weak force struggling at death's door under the oppression of the 9 luminaries. That was why he couldn't understand what was happening. The era of the 9 luminaries had already ended. Why did the player clan do this? Was it a laughable death wish? At this moment, Rashu, who was in the middle of the battlefield, grabbed a player and stared into his eyes, asking the same question as the king. The player's answer was simple and clear. It's a death wish, but this is just the beginning. His answer was the voice of thousands of players. Battle was the best answer. Press forward with indomitable will, just like in the past. Tell the enemy with an unyielding will to fight that the players are here. The war was still going on. The 9 luminaries' warriors were bathed in blood as they fought. They had long given up hope of survival. All that was left in their hearts was the firm belief to protect the glory of the 9 luminaries. Emotions were contagious. It was the same for the players. They were immersed in the final stubbornness of the 9 luminaries' warriors and sent them off with the blood of their enemies. Although the enemy was strong, so strong that it was unstoppable. The shadow of the Azura demon god crushed the shadows of the cursed apostles one after another. Under the collision of flesh against flesh, the rune warriors were bathed in blood and died in the face of absolute power. Under the collision of the killing curse and thousands of spells, the fragile sorcerers withered one after another. The enemy was too strong. Even if the remaining 9 luminaries warriors and players tried their best to resist, they still couldn't stop their advance. However, no one retreated, be it the 9 luminaries warriors or players. The last words left by Xing Yao before he died were, no one can underestimate the 9 luminaries. Although the players used to hate the 9 luminaries, they never denied this fact. How could the 9 luminaries, who had once defeated Baki, be weak? The players acknowledged their strength, so they couldn't allow their former opponent to be underestimated. Figures fell in battle one after another, but more figures came from the back. They took over the faith of the dead, waved their weapons, and unsheathed their swords at the endless enemies in front of them. The player clan, the clan king murmured again as he looked ahead. At this moment, he put away the contempt in his heart, because their determination to die were enough to move him. However, this was war, and he wouldn't have any sympathy. What he had to do now was to end everything, to put an end to the era of the 9 luminaries, and then carve the mark of Rahu on this land. All elders, attack now. It's time to end this war, the clan king murmured. Upon hearing this, someone beside him waved the Rahu military flag and sent out a battlefield signal. It's over. The moment they saw the Rahu military flag waving in the wind, the elders of the various forces of Rahu attacked at once. Each of them had the combat power of a ghost king in the later stages, or even higher. They were all the strongest warriors who survived the Rahu era. They were very familiar with the battlefield, but they were even more familiar with killing. The power of the Asura demon god poured onto the battlefield once again. Every time they attacked, they would take away the lives of a large number of 9 luminaries warriors and players. In this one-sided battle, the number of 9 luminaries warriors decreased. At this moment, the hysterical cries of the remaining 9 luminaries warriors rang out on the battlefield. No one can underestimate the 9 luminaries. At the last moment of their lives, they carried out the words of the star brilliance, and put their lives into action. Everyone, charge! The clan king's voice rang across the battlefield. With bloodshot eyes, every Rahu warrior launched a ferocious attack once more. The figures of the 9 luminaries warriors fell one after another, and their cries grew weaker and weaker. At this moment, shouts rang out on the battlefield once more. No one can underestimate the 9 luminaries. This time, it was the players who were shouting. The players took over the obsession of the 9 luminaries warriors before they died and continued to fight for them. Their cries blended into the battlefield filled with soldiers, reverberating into a solemn and stirring symphony, playing the final elegy of the 9 luminaries era. Chapter 457. The battle was over. In the face of absolute power, the players could not stop the advance of the Rahu army even if they fought to the death. The sounds of battle, the shouts, everything returned to silence. The wind started to blow on the battlefield. The gale swept across the battlefield, blowing away the clamor and the legendary era that belonged to the 9 luminaries. 10,000 years passed. Dynasties changed under the wheel of time. No force could stand forever. This was the underworld under the cruel law of survival. The land had long been dyed red with blood. The old era that belonged to the 9 luminaries had ended. However, the mark of the 9 luminaries was engraved into the legendary story of this region. Even after a long time, there would still be people who remembered that this region once belonged to the 9 luminaries and the 9 brothers. This time, the mark of the Rahu region was engraved into the land of the 9 luminaries. From now on, this region belonged to the Rahu region. In this battlefield where blood flowed like a river, no one cheered for him. All the warriors were thinking about one question. When will we end like this, by the creator of the new era? The sand and wind blurred their eyes. All the warriors stood quietly where they were. They had no way of knowing the answer. However, looking at their comrades beside them, they knew that perhaps they would continue fighting like the warriors of the 9 luminaries until the very end of their lives. This was the fate of every warrior. From the moment they wore the glory of the region, it was as if they were destined to have such an ending. The flames of war would never be extinguished, and the battle would never end. To send off all the fallen warriors. The clan leader's voice echoed across the battlefield. At this moment, a war song echoed across the battlefield. All the Rahu warriors began to chant an ancient war song, to pay tribute to all the fallen soldiers, to the former kings. Hoarse voices, ancient melodies, and sorrowful cries. They used the ancient war song to send off the fallen warriors, regardless of friend or foe. All forces only wanted to continue to exist, and all soldiers only wanted to continue to live. It was the same for killing and plundering. There was no good or bad in this world, nor was there right or wrong. However, to simply live, one must use the cruelest method to eliminate all enemies. We do not want to, but we have no other choice. Under the law of survival, we are all ant. Let us gamble on our honor in this battle. The loser's soul will return to the 6 realms, and the winner will continue to write a legend. The moment the war song ended, all the Rahu warriors roared into the sky. Rest in peace, brave warriors who died for glory. At the end of the cycle, a figure slowly appeared. He looked around in confusion, feeling as if he had lost some of his memories. He tried hard to recall, but his mind was blank. However, he vaguely felt that he had lost something very important. He wanted to chase after something, he wanted to search for it, he wanted to grab hold of everything that had passed away, but he couldn't remember what it was. At this moment, a figure appeared in front of him. Star shine. Bei Li's voice echoed in Xing Yao's mind, dispelling the fog in the world of samsara and awakening his consciousness. At this moment, he remembered who he was and what he was looking for. I am Starshine. I am searching for my fallen brothers. Where am I? Who are you? Looking at Bei Li, Xing Yao asked in confusion. This is the 6 Paths Reincarnation, the place of reincarnation. My name is Bei Li. Am I dead? Yes, you're dead. After knowing that he had died, Xing Yao's expression did not change in the slightest as he calmly accepted this fact. Aren't you afraid? Bei Li asked doubtfully as she looked at Xing Yao. Xing Yao shook his head slightly. I've known that this day would come. Although it has come early, I'm not surprised. I can bring you back to life, Bei Li said solemnly as she looked at Xing Yao. Xing Yao's eyes were emotionless when he heard that. He did not answer her directly. Instead, he asked, Where are my brothers? They've crossed the bridge and entered the world of samsara. Bei Li pointed at the bridge in the distance as she spoke, where a dim lantern was hanging. Did they leave ahead of time? Xing Yao murmured with a pained look on his face. Yes, they left, but I can bring you back to life, Bei Li said again as she looked at Xing Yao. No. Jiu Yao shook his head slightly. This shouldn't be your end. You have a better future ahead of you, Bei Li could not help but persuade him. Wherever my brothers are, that's my end and my starting point, Xing Yao smiled faintly. Have you really made up your mind? Wuhui, the place where my brothers are is my home and my future. They're all gone and I'm homeless now, Xing Yao said with a sorrowful expression. Sigh. If it wasn't for the traders from the heaven realm, the underworld wouldn't be like this. Bei Li could not help but sigh. Bei Li gritted her teeth as she recalled the sins that the heaven realm had committed. They deserve to die, they're shameless traitors. You really don't want to be reborn. Bei Li could not bear it and tried to persuade Xing Yao again. No. Xing Yao shook his head slightly. Aren't you curious about who I am? Bei Li could not help but stare. Is it important? Bei Li was stunned, but she nodded. It's not. Xing Yao smiled faintly and walked towards the Naraka bridge, leaving Bei Li with a lonely silhouette as he walked further and further away. After crossing the bridge, Xing Yao's silhouette faded away in the reincarnation whirlpool. Big brother is too late. Xing Yao mumbled as his silhouette was completely swallowed by the reincarnation mist. Bei Li clenched her fist as she watched Xing Yao's silhouette disappear. Then, she disappeared from the 6 paths of reincarnation and returned to reality. Wah! The emotional Bei Li dashed towards the kitchen. She then leaped up and locked Lu Wu's neck, who was cooking from behind. Ahem! Lu Wu was caught off guard. He immediately turned around and carried Bailey down. Xing Yao is dead, he doesn't want to go with me, Bailey said while sobbing. I told you, Xing Yao won't agree. Lu Wu felt helpless as he looked at the weeping Bailey. Those bastards from the heaven realm, Lu Wu, you have to become stronger and defeat them quickly. Bailey clenched her fists and sobbed. I will. Lu Wu smiled and patted Bailey's little head, but he looked very determined. Bailey heard him and slowly raised her head. Her eyes were still misty. I'm hungry. Then go sit down and don't disturb me while I'm cooking. Okay. Bailey nodded and jumped onto the seat. She then picked up the chopsticks out of habit and started knocking on the bowl to urge him to eat. Even so, the sadness in Bailey's eyes did not fade away even though she did not know how to disguise herself. In fact, Lu Wu always knew that Bailey had suffered too much. However, she had never complained or even shared the pain in her heart with him. She just endured it alone. However, Lu Wu knew that Bailey hated the people from the heaven realm. She called them traitors and hypocritical sinners. Because the people from the heaven realm who set the rules of the three realms brought too much pain to the human world and the underworld. They will get what they deserve. At this moment, Lu Wu swore in his heart. The growth of the players is still ongoing. I look forward to that day. Ding. 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 I'm starving. I'm starving. Bailey sat at the dining table and knocked on her bowl to hide her emotions. Don't you know how to think about something meaningful other than eating? Lu Wu asked without turning his head. No, serve the dishes now, or I'll turn you into a cat. Bailey bared her teeth. Don't you dare. I'll do it if you don't serve the dishes. Be careful that I don't eat your snacks. Lu Wu threatened. Upon hearing this, Bailey's expression froze and she ran to the main hall. After a while, Bailey returned to the kitchen angrily. She climbed onto the dining table and leaped up from the table, pouncing on Lu Wu who was still cooking. Ouch! Eat my strangle! Chapter 458. Baiki, the Mansion of the Dead. After the war between the land of the Nine Luminaries and the land of Rahu ended, the construction of the Mansion of the Dead was put on the agenda again. But the players had mixed feelings. The forces that had been fighting with them for half a year had ended in such a manner. The war was too tragic, and it was difficult for them to accept. It was especially so when Starshine died in battle. Every player felt as if they were witnessing a powerhouse past his prime and the passing of time. However, the past was the past. The players who returned to Baiki were still immersed in the construction of the Mansion of the Dead. He was also prepared to fight against a new opponent. When all the construction points in the Mansion of the Dead's illusory city were filled up, the city materialized and landed in the sky pit of the dead. The gloomy clouds in the players' hearts dispersed, and smiles once again appeared on their faces. Countless players shouted "Go home" as they swarmed into the Mansion of the Dead. Familiar city gates, familiar streets, and familiar figures. They were back, old friends he hadn't seen for months. Tonghua, the Rock Ghost King, Shao Tian, the Wood Spirit Clan, and so on. At this moment, the players were extremely excited. They had been wandering outside for too long. They missed home, and they missed their old friends even more. Master Tonghua, I miss you so much when you're not around. The soul coins in your pocket, quick, let's go play cards. Boss Rock, I have a lot of questions about refining medicine right now. I need an answer. I feel like I'm going crazy without anyone to guide me. Miss from the Wood Spirit Clan, I want to buy some wine. The auction house is out of stock. Give me a box. The players pounced on the NPCs like hungry wolves. The scene was crazy. What a touching scene of reunion. At the city gate, a rabbit followed a young girl as they slowly walked into the city. Rabbit, this is my home. Isn't it awesome? Yi Sherwin turned to look at Rabbit and chuckled. Well, it's much better than my house. There are only trees there. It's really boring. Rabbit nodded. At this moment, Gu Yu led the members of the Myth Guild into the city, passing by Yi Sherwin and Rabbit. Rabbit looked at the group of people around him, and when he saw Dog, he looked very surprised. Why is Little White here? What Xiao Bai? Yi Sherwen turned around and asked. She then realized that Rabbit was staring at Go Zi from the Myth Guild with a piercing gaze. Don't. That's not Little White, Yi Sherwen quickly said. However, Rabbit had already pounced forward. At that moment Yi Sherwen's heart skipped a beat. She recalled that she and Rabbit had caught 2 animals on their way back to Bakey a few days ago. They had even turned them into dogs as mounts and named them Little White. It's over. Apparently, the rabbit didn't notice anything amiss. He howled and pounced towards the dog. Then, he suddenly jumped onto his back and straddled it. He twisted the dog's ear and said, "What are you doing? Little White, didn't I let you go? Why did you come back? Did you miss me?" With that said, the rabbit rubbed Sun Chi's head again. At this moment, Gu Yu and the others were dumbfounded. They had no idea where this rabbit came from. It seemed to be very familiar with the dog. Not knowing what was going on, they stared dumbfoundedly, not knowing what to say. At this moment, Sun Chi turned his head to look at the excited rabbit, and his expression gradually turned ferocious. "Who are you?" "I'm your master." Hearing that, Rabbit was instantly displeased. At the same time, he slapped the dog's head. "What the F***ck? Oh. At this moment, Sun Chi couldn't stand it anymore. He turned around and bit Rabbit. "Little White, are you crazy? Be careful that you don't turn into a pig." "Ow!" Sun Chi couldn't care less. He pressed Rabbit down and hammered him. "Help, turn Little White into a pig." Rabbit quickly began to struggle and shouted at Yi Sherwen. Upon hearing that, Yi Sherwen glanced at the strong people of the Myth Guild and then at Rabbit. She gave up the idea of fighting back. After all, she was clear about her own strength. The highest limit was only the beginner level of the Ghost Supreme Commander. On the other hand, several core members of the Myth Guild were already at the intermediate level of the Ghost Supreme Commander. She had no chance of winning against them. However, seeing Rabbit being pressed on the ground and being rubbed, Yi Sherwen couldn't bear it. She took a few steps forward and looked at Gu Yu weakly. "Big Boss Gu, can you let Rabbit go? Did you tame him?" Gu Yu was stunned. To Gu Yu, it was very normal for players to tame beasts as mounts or pets. The only thing that surprised him was that this rabbit could speak. "No, he's my friend." Yi Sherwen quickly shook his head. "Hurry up and turn him into a pig. Little White is crazy. He's really going to beat me to death." At this moment, Rabbit's wail could be heard. "Then go to hell." Sun Chi howled and his fists rained down on Rabbit again. "I'm going to kill you." At this moment, Rabbit suddenly raised his fist and smashed it at Sun Chi. Even a rabbit would bite when it was anxious. Did he really think that he was a pushover? Then, the 2 white figures rolled together and hammered back and forth. However, the outcome was obvious. Sun Chi, who had the ability to heal himself, completely crushed Rabbit. It was a one-sided battle. In the end, Rabbit was beaten to the point that he was lying on the ground. He stuck out his tongue and panted heavily. His face was covered in bruises. Looking at Rabbit's miserable appearance, Yi Sherwen suddenly thought of the bamboo rat that was killed by Rabbit because of a verbal disagreement. How similar! Fortunately, Sun Chi was just venting his anger and did not kill him. Looking at the dying Rabbit, Yi Sherwen immediately went forward and began to check on his condition. After discovering that Rabbit was only lightly injured, he immediately heaved a sigh of relief. "Hurry up and turn him into a pig. I want revenge." Rabbit looked at Yi Sherwen with tears in his eyes and said, "He's not Little White. You've got the wrong person." Yi Sherwen said slightly awkwardly, "He is. It feels exactly the same when I ride him." Rabbit retorted stubbornly. Hearing this, Sun Chi could not help but bare his teeth. He immediately wanted to teach Rabbit how to be a human. Although he did not understand why Rabbit kept acting as if he had ridden him before and was very familiar with him, being a mount was still a pain in Sun Chi's heart and he could not allow others to mention it. He must beat it until it loses its memory. Sun Chi thought angrily. Thinking of this, Sun Chi waved his hand and a green light flowed into Rabbit's body. With Sun Chi's healing skill, Rabbit was instantly energized. However, Sun Chi was naturally not so kind. He healed it just so he could beat it up again. But this time, Sun Chi was stopped by Guyu before he could pounce. Sun Chi, that's enough. There must be some misunderstanding. Boss, this rabbit hit me for no reason. Sun Chi suddenly raised his head, feeling wronged. It's just a misunderstanding. Let's understand the situation first. Guyu smiled awkwardly. In fact, he knew Sun Chi's character very well. He was the kind of person who was easy to talk to and had a mild temper. However, there were only a few taboos that he could not touch. Night charge of Dog Dog was one of them. This rabbit rode on Sun Chi and stabbed his sore spot. It was Sun Chi's kindness that he was not beaten to death. Even Guyu felt the same way. However, they were all players. Moreover, this seemingly stupid and cute girl had asked for help. If he continued to attack, it would seem like he was bullying her. At this time, Rabbit, who was energized, quickly bounced up from the ground and hid behind Yi Sherwan. He looked at Sun Chi with a vigilant face. After a while, Rabbit realized that this little white might not be the little white that he knew. After all, the difference in strength was too big. Tell me, what's going on? Guyu looked at Yi Sherwan and asked. Yi Sherwan dodged his gaze. After thinking for a while, he mustered up his courage and told them about the day when he caught the 2 antler goats and turned them into white phantom mount. Even Yi Sherwan did not expect that his actions that day would have such an outcome. This was because one of her dreams was to have a white phantom mount. At that time, she had unexpectedly turned into 2. However, she did not expect that a moment of happiness would cause the silly rabbit to mistake it for someone else. Ha ha ha, a white phantom mount. This little girl has a dream. Not bad. The people from the Myth Guild could not help but laugh when they heard it. However, Sun Chi's face gradually turned red at this moment. I think I understand the reason. In other words, this rabbit mistook me for someone else, Guyu said while holding back his laughter. Yes, I'm sorry to have caused you trouble. Yi Sherwan quickly apologized. It's all right. No discord, no concord. Ha! At this moment, Guyu could not help but laugh out loud. Little girl, your idea isn't bad, but my brother Dog is the godly mount that has been crowned first in the mount ranking for 6 consecutive months in the European server. How can it be so easy? The player suddenly stopped talking as the dog glared at him with a murderous glare. I'm sorry. Yi Sherwan quickly lowered her head and apologized to the dog. Little girl, I advise you to be kinder. Don't have such immoral thoughts. After knowing that the little girl in front of him had such a vicious idea, the dog said with a bitter expression. I won't. Yi Sherwan quickly shook her head. Forget it, stupid rabbit. Brother Dog will let you go. Sun Chi sighed dispiritedly and looked at the rabbit hiding behind Yi Sherwan. I'm sorry, I was wrong, but I still dare to do it. At this moment, the rabbit looked at the dog with timid eyes but still said stubbornly. Although it knew that it was wrong and felt apologetic, it could not help but be stubborn when it thought of the beating just now. At this moment, the dog turned to look at Guyu and said, Boss, I think we should just beat it to death. Guyu was speechless. Yi Sherwan was speechless. Stop it, it's still young. Guyu said helplessly. I'm 302 years old. The rabbit immediately retorted. At this moment, everyone was speechless. Do you really want to be beaten to death? By the way, are you the player who obtained the Azura Ultimate Path? Guyu suddenly asked. He did not notice it just now. Now that he opened Yi Sherwan's analysis menu and saw this person's name, Guyu suddenly remembered the server announcement a few days ago. The player mentioned in the announcement was also called Yi Sherwan. Coupled with the transformation skill that Yi Sherwan described earlier, Guyu suddenly had an idea. Yes. Yi Sherwan nodded obediently. Hearing Yi Sherwan admit it, Guyu's heart skipped a beat. He then smiled and said, You haven't joined a guild yet, right? Do you want to join us? Guyu had always yearned for talented players. When he lost the first guild hegemony tournament, he was very eager to regain his honor in the next hegemony tournament. Therefore, he did not want to miss out on a player as powerful as Yi Sherwan. Hearing this, Yi Sherwan fell into deep thought. After a while, he raised his head and said, "No, I'm an explorer. I don't like to join a guild." "Agree to it, then we'll endure the humiliation in there and wait for the right opportunity." Crack! At this moment, the rabbit who was standing behind Yi Sherwan suddenly said. At the end of its sentence, it looked at the dog and made a throat-slitting gesture. "Boss, we should really kill this rabbit." Looking at the cowardly but stubborn rabbit, the dog could not help but grit his teeth. Chapter 459. Guyu did not know what to say in the face of the dog's suggestion. This rabbit's expression was clearly cowardly. How could it say such words while being cowardly? Forget it. Let's go and find Tonghua to forge a weapon. Guyu shook his head in the end and walked towards Tonghua's forging room. Upon hearing this, Sun Chi turned his head and bared his teeth threateningly at Rabbit. Then, he turned around and left with Guyu. After the people from the Myth Guild left, the rabbit suddenly jumped out from behind Yi Sherwan. It patted its chest with a look of lingering fear. "This little white is really powerful. Rabbit, behave yourself. Don't ever admit your mistake again, or I won't be able to save you." Yi Sherwan could not help but warn it. The rabbit heard it and turned to look at Yi Sherwan, waving its hand. "I'm just a little rabbit. What's the use of reasoning with me? I'm not going to listen anyway." Yi Sherwan was stunned when he heard this. "Although I was wrong this time, I've already been beaten up, so this matter is over. However, I've also decided that I'll challenge him in the future and defeat him." At this time, Rabbit suddenly looked at Yi Sherwan with a solemn expression and said, "You want to challenge the dog? Are you serious?" Yi Sherwan looked incredulous. In her opinion, how could the rabbit be a match for the dog? After all, the dog was a white phantom, a divine beast, while it was just a little rabbit that had lived for 302 years. It seemed that there was an insurmountable gap in their bloodline. Thinking of this, Yi Sherwan looked at the rabbit with pity. He felt that, if the rabbit challenged the dog, it would probably be beaten up again. "Why are you looking at me like that? Do you think I can't beat it?" Looking at Yi Sherwan, the rabbit suddenly stared at him. "Yes." Yi Sherwan nodded honestly. In Yi Sherwan's opinion, if he did not plead for the rabbit, the dog would probably beat the **T out of the rabbit. "No, I want to cultivate. I want to find a peerless skill." Hearing this, the rabbit lowered its head and thought for a moment, then nodded with a serious face. After thinking about it carefully, the rabbit felt that it really could not beat the little white dog. At this moment, the rabbit was very worried. As a rabbit, did it not have a chance to turn things around? How could it challenge a divine beast? "Didn't you say that your player clan is very strong? Is there a way for me to become strong overnight?" With that thought, the rabbit raised its head and looked at Yi Sherwan with a serious expression. Yi Sherwan. She felt that the rabbit's paranoia was getting worse. "Did you? Hurry up and tell me. When I become a powerful being, I'll give you a lot of delicious food to repay you." The rabbit grabbed onto Yi Sherwan's trousers and raised its head with a sincere expression. Hearing the word delicious, Yi Sherwan's expression instantly froze. For the past few days, when she was eating, she found that all the dry bread had lost its taste. At the time, she thought that the players who made the bread were cutting corners, which caused the bread to be tasteless. Although Yi Sherwan was very angry, who asked it to be cheap? At least the amount was not reduced, so Yi Sherwan gritted his teeth and endured it. Until yesterday, when he ate the meat of a fat bamboo rat that rabbit hunted. The fragrance was very fragrant, but what made Yi Sherwan collapse was that there was actually no smell at all. At that time, Yi Sherwan was terrified and began to search for answers. He even asked for help from the players on the forum. That was until she noticed the notification in the skill analysis for Shura word. This skill is being learned entering tasteless state. At that moment the sky fell down. Yi Sherwin could not help but burst into tears. This skill was too scary, wasn't it torture? At that time, Yi Sherwin even wanted to delete his character and start over. However, there was no ability to delete character in battle in the end. It was Rabbit's consolation that Yi Sherwin finally pulled through. At least Yi Sherwin understood that in reality, her taste buds had not disappeared. Therefore, when Rabbit said delicious food, Yi Sherwin instantly felt extremely heartbroken. Because after she learned Shura word, all delicious food was treated as dry bread. After all, they would taste the same in the future. It was very realistic, very cruel. Omega. Yi Sherwin, help me think of a way. I think I'm very talented, Rabbit said as he tugged on Yi Sherwin's trousers. Hearing this, Yi Sherwin sighed and said, "There's no way, you're just a little rabbit, it's a white phantom mythical beast, it can suppress you in terms of bloodline. Even if it doesn't do anything, just healing itself can exhaust you to death. Then, is there anything that can enhance my bloodline and make me a mythical rabbit?" Rabbit continued to ask with a face full of hope. No. Yi Sherwin shook his head decisively. At this moment, Rabbit's ears drooped, and she squatted on the ground with a dispirited look. Then, she slowly hugged her knees, looking as pitiful as one could imagine. Yi Sherwin was speechless. Looking at Rabbit in such a state, Yi Sherwin really did not know how to comfort her. After thinking for a while, Yi Sherwin clicked on the game shop with some hope, entered a line of words in the search bar, biological bloodline enhancement, and clicked on search. What surprised Yi Sherwin was that there was actually a product that popped up. Blood Cleansing Pill Level 7. Pill Details. A high-quality pill refined from the combination of 3 earth pills, rock wood powder, ghost beast blood and more than 30 other medicinal herbs. It has the miraculous effect of making bloodline return to ancestral form. Pill Effect. Draw out the hidden talent power in the bloodline and strengthen one's own potential. The stronger the ancestral bloodline, the stronger the effect of the pill. Using a single pill is not effective. Pill Quality. 39 Refiner. Rock Ghost King Price. 8,888 soul coins. Seeing the effect of the pill, Yi Sherwin's face revealed a look of surprise. But when he saw the price of the pill, Yi Sherwin felt like he was going blind. He quickly closed the game shop interface and stood still for a while, shaking his head as if he had seen a horrifying scene. "Do you have an idea?" Rabbit slowly raised his head and asked in a low voice. Yi Sherwin heard and quickly shook her head very hard. What a joke, 8,888 soul coins, how many days of food would she need? She could not even afford it even if she sold herself. This was not a bloodline enhancement pill, it was clearly a pill of ruin. Oh! Rabbit lowered her head again and hung it on the ground, continuing to fall into a state of isolation. Damn it! Why am I just a weak rabbit? Why? Rabbit, let's go, I'll bring you around the mansion of the dead. Haven't you always wanted to see it? Yi Sherwin grabbed Rabbit's ear and shook it. Let me calm down, I need time to slowly accept the fact that I have no talent, Rabbit said very dispiritedly, pushing Yi Sherwin's hand away. Although Yi Sherwin really wanted to help Rabbit, the little gold vault did not agree. It was a classic case of having too much heart but not enough money. "Oh right, Rabbit, I'll bring you to Uncle Rock, you can ask him," Yi Sherwin suddenly said. "Who's Rock?" Rabbit asked without raising her head. "Uncle Rock is the best apothecary. He can refine many pills that can help players grow," Yi Sherwin explained. "Then can he refine a pill that can let me eat it and turn me into a divine rabbit? Maybe." Hearing this, Rabbit immediately raised her head and grabbed Yi Sherwin's trouser leg. "Please bring me to him, I need his help." As she spoke, Rabbit placed her head on Yi Sherwin's leg and rubbed it. "Then let's go." Yi Sherwin looked at Rabbit, feeling uncertain. Okay. Rabbit quickly nodded. After that, the human and rabbit set off for the Rock Apothecary Association. At this time, the Apothecary Association was already surrounded by a crowd, but only a few could enter. This was because Rock had set the prerequisites for entering the Apothecary Association. Only an apothecary or under the guidance of an apothecary, and no more than 3 people could enter. Therefore, a large wave of players who came to visit Rock were blocked outside the door. Yi Sherwin's arrival did not attract the attention of any players. She pulled Rabbit along and squeezed her way to the entrance of the Apothecary Association. Then, under the surprised gazes of the players, she dragged Rabbit in. That's right, although Yi Sherwin was poor, she could proudly say that she was an apothecary. As a player who wanted to write the World Conquest Encyclopedia, although the knowledge of apothecary was complicated, the few days of studying had allowed her to grasp the basic knowledge and ability of apothecary. In terms of intelligence, Yi Sherwin was very confident. Although Yi Sherwin felt that she was lacking a little in terms of emotional intelligence, it was not a big problem. Regrettably, Yi Sherwin completely gave up on being an apothecary ever since she charged a fee for practicing spiritual materials. It could not be helped. Who asked this profession to burn money? If she wanted to increase her success rate and proficiency in apothecary, she would need to consume a large amount of spiritual materials. In Yi Sherwin's eyes, any spiritual material was a huge sum of money. In addition, she liked to wander around and did not like to gather in group. She could not have her cake and eat it too. Therefore, she rejected many invitations from guilds. Being so poor that she gave up on her future was a true portrayal of Yi Sherwin. Although many players said that the apothecary profession was good and profitable, but in Yi Sherwin's opinion, she should just obediently explore. A poor child wanting to be a great apothecary? Go eat your farts. But at this moment, Yi Sherwin's identity as an apothecary allowed her to pass through the entrance of the Apothecary Association and enter easily. The interior was extremely spacious. Yi Sherwin was very familiar with this place, and walked toward the apothecary area where Rock was usually at. The apothecary area was the size of 2 football fields. At this moment, there were already many players present. Surprisingly, Rock was among them. He was surrounded by the players in the center and was asking questions. After being cooped up in the artifact space for so long, Rock was finally out. At this moment, he was extremely happy and in an extremely good mood. Rock did not feel annoyed with the players' doubts and answered them one by one. Seeing this, Yi Sherwin pulled Rabbit along and waited at the side. An hour passed. 2 hours passed in the days when Rock was not around. The players had accumulated many questions about apothecary. Naturally, they had to ask them now. However, Rabbit had lost his patience. Thinking that he might be able to become a godly rabbit soon, he was a little impatient. Rabbit, wait a little longer. Uncle Rock is busy. How much longer? Soon. When the rabbit heard this, it waited obediently again. Another hour passed. Just as Rabbit was about to lose his patience, Rock suddenly said, "Let's go." "All right, let me see how everyone has improved during this period. Refine a furnace of medicinal pills for me to see." Hearing this, the players could not help but nod and retreat. They took out their own apothecary furnaces and began refining. Seeing that the players had retreated, Yi Sherwin immediately pulled Rabbit over. Chapter 460. Yi Sherwin's approach attracted Rock Spirit Rock's attention. Rock Spirit Rock turned his head and immediately saw a rabbit sprinting toward him from a short distance away. After approaching, the rabbit leaped up from the ground and hugged Rock Spirit Rock's arm tightly, rubbing its face against it. As a rabbit that ate leaves, it instantly smelled the rich aroma of spirit materials after approaching Rock Spirit Rock. This was too tempting for it. "Rabbit, stop!" Yi Sherwin hurried forward and used a great deal of effort to pull the rabbit off Rock Spirit Rock's arm. "He seems to be very delicious." The rabbit stood on the ground and stared at Rock Spirit Rock with a dazed expression. There was even a trace of crystal at the corner of its mouth. Ye Sherwin. Seeing this scene, Rock Spirit Rock couldn't help but clench his fists. Uncle Rock, I'm sorry. This rabbit just came out of the mountains and doesn't understand. Ye Sherwin hurriedly apologized. What's the matter? Rock Spirit Rock turned to Ye Sherwin and asked. You're a spirit material, why can you move and even speak? At this moment, the rabbit asked in shock. Can't you, a rabbit, speak too? Rock Spirit Rock couldn't help but glare at the rabbit. It's not the same. It's not strange for a rabbit to speak. It's strange that a spirit material like you can speak. The rabbit immediately retorted. This rabbit should be used by you to refine medicine, right? Rock Spirit Rock suddenly gave up on the idea of arguing and turned to ask Ye Sherwin. Hearing this, Ye Sherwin was startled and hurriedly shook his head. Uncle Rock, no, I have a question to ask you. Oh, then this rabbit is for me to nourish my body? Rock Spirit Rock asked again. Ye Sherwin was instantly dumbfounded. How should I eat it? Braise it or steam it? Looking at the rabbit, a trace of curiosity appeared in Rock Spirit Rock's eyes. What the hell, a spirit material actually wants to eat a rabbit? Looking at Rock Spirit Rock, the rabbit was also dumbfounded. After all, in its opinion, spirit materials were existences at the bottom of the food chain, and a rabbit like it ate these plants. Thus, when it heard Rock Spirit Rock say that he wanted to eat it, the rabbit had a look of disbelief. The rabbit scratched its ears and asked with a perplexed expression, Wait, let's get this straight. You're a spiritual material, and I'm a rabbit. Shouldn't I be the one eating you? Rock Spirit Rock obviously couldn't be bothered to argue with the rabbit. He glanced at it disdainfully and turned to Ye Sherwin. Speak, what exactly is it? Ye Sherwin came back to his senses when he heard that. He pointed at the rabbit. Uncle Rock, rabbit is my friend, not food. I can see that, so why are you looking for me? Rock asked curiously. That. My rabbit friend wants to evolve into a divine beast. Ye Sherwin felt extremely embarrassed when he said this. Yes, evolve into a divine rabbit. Rabbit nodded vigorously at the side. Ha ha ha, divine rabbit? I'll use the medicine furnace to evolve you into a braised rabbit. Hearing this, Rock could not help but laugh. This spirit material of yours really is crazy. You've actually been thinking about eating me all this time. The rabbit was dumbfounded. I remember you. Ye Sherwin, right? You did well in the medicine refining trial. Don't joke around. Rock Spirit Rock turned to Ye Sherwin and said, Rock Spirit Rock, I'm serious. I know you have a way. Ye Sherwin couldn't help but say again as he recalled Rabbit squatting on the ground. It's not that easy to evolve a bloodline. I can't do it either. Rock Spirit Rock shook his head. Rock Spirit Rock, I know you know how to refine a blood-cleansing pill. Isn't this pill able to help creatures evolve? Blood-cleansing pill? Rock Spirit Rock was stunned when he heard the name of the pill. He suddenly remembered that he was the one who put this pill up for auction. It was priced at 8,888 soul coins. As a member of Beiki, he had more soul coins than Tongua. However, no one would complain about having too many soul coins. Therefore, he would usually refine some pills and put them up for auction in his spare time. He would earn some soul coins from the players and pay a heavy tax to Lu Wu. The rest would be stored in his little vault until he had enough to break through to the next level. He was the one who refined this blood-cleansing pill. It was a level 7 pill. When he put it up for auction with a price of 18,888 soul coins, no players bought it at all. Then, he lowered the price all the way to 8,888 soul coins. In Rock Spirit Rock's opinion, the price was barely enough to cover the cost of the materials. He didn't care about it since he couldn't sell it. A few months had passed and he almost forgot about it. Now that Ye Sherwin mentioned it, he suddenly remembered it. Rock Spirit Rock looked at Rabbit and then at Ye Sherwin. He couldn't help but advise him. The herbs for the blood-cleansing pill are too expensive. Moreover, it won't have much effect if you only use one. If you don't have a lot of soul coins, I advise you to give up on using the blood cleansing pill to cleanse this rabbit's bloodline. Yi Sherwin felt dizzy when he heard that. One blood cleansing pill cost 8,888 soul coins. Based on what Rock Spirit Rock said, one was not enough and he needed more. At that moment, Yi Sherwin's mind was filled with the multiples of 8,888 soul coins. Give it up, rabbit. Just be a little white rabbit, Yi Sherwin thought to himself. Then give me more. Rabbit looked at Rock Spirit Rock with a serious expression. A little rabbit like you probably doesn't have any powerful ancestors. No matter how many blood cleansing pills you use, it won't have much effect. It'll just be a waste. Give it up. Rock Spirit Rock looked at Rabbit and said, Really? Rabbit seemed to have suffered a blow. His ears instantly drooped. Rabbit, let's give it up. Yi Sherwin couldn't help but advise. Is there no other hope? Rabbit said pitifully with its head lowered. Rock Spirit Rock shook his head. Unless you eat a king-level spiritual material and cleanse your body. Only then will your physique improve by leaps and bounds. But that's not realistic. As he spoke, Rock Spirit Rock walked toward the players who were refining medicine. Seeing Rock Spirit Rock leave, Rabbit's eyes lit up when he heard the method. He took a few steps forward, leaped up and hugged Rock Spirit Rock's arm again. A spiritual material that can move. Help me. Where can I find a king-level spiritual material to eat? Let go. It's not that I don't want to help. I really can't. Rock Spirit Rock turned his head and glared at Rabbit. From Rock Spirit Rock's point of view, he had only seen one king-level spiritual material in his life, and that was himself. Could he **king eat this? Hearing this, Rabbit's body slid off Rock Spirit Rock's arm and landed on the ground with a thud. He curled up with a dispirited expression. Rabbit, don't be so emotional. Yi Sherwin felt that Rabbit's state of mind was too bad as he looked at Rabbit, who had once again fallen into isolation. Couldn't he just draw pictures to satisfy his hunger, entertain himself, and deceive others and himself? Was it so hard to imagine some beautiful things and deceive oneself? Sigh, what a mentally deficient rabbit. Don't mind me. I'm just a little rabbit, a weak little rabbit with no strength at all. Rabbit shrunk his body dispiritedly. Then, he flipped over and faced the ground, curling up into a ball again. Yi Sherwin. Looking at the rabbit, Yi Sherwin somehow mustered up the courage to jog to the front of the rock and said with a trembling voice, I'm sorry, but I didn't say anything. Then, he said in a trembling voice, Uncle Rock, I'll buy a blood-cleansing pill. Can I buy it on credit? I'll pay you back when I earn the money. Looking at Yi Sherwin's trembling voice, Rock Spirit Rock couldn't help but be stunned. You're really going to give that stupid rabbit a blood-cleansing pill? Yi Sherwin nodded his head forcefully, but tears flowed down uncontrollably. Rock Spirit Rock was completely speechless. At this moment, Yi Sherwin made a heart-wrenching decision. He was going to buy a blood-cleansing pill on credit for Rabbit to squander. Chapter 461. At this moment, Yi Sherwin was sobbing pitifully. In the past few days, Yi Sherwin had long since regarded Rabbit as her friend. In Yi Sherwin's opinion, although Rabbit was stupid and naive, it was very sincere and never hid its emotions. She treasured such a friend. Rabbit brought her a lot of joy. She still remembered that day. After learning that she had lost her sense of taste, she could not help but cry bitterly. She was as dispirited as Rabbit now. Rabbit, who did not know how to comfort others, stayed by her side. It told her stories of fighting with other animals in the mountains and told Yi Sherwin stories that it thought were funny, trying to comfort her. Although Yi Sherwin did not want to laugh at all, she still felt that Rabbit was very warm. This was a heartfelt emotion. In the end, Yi Sherwin stopped crying and smiled, not because of Rabbit's stories, but because Rabbit always had a "I can't do anything about you" expression on its face when it comforted her. Although she was very distressed about money, very distressed. But this time, she decided to help Rabbit and fulfill her wish, even if she did not succeed in the end. But at least she tried. So Yi Sherwin decided to buy a blood-cleansing pill. Yi Sherwin was crying very sadly. As she spoke, her body trembled. Every time the number 8888 appeared in her mind, Yi Sherwin could not stop her tears from flowing. At this moment, Rock was dumbfounded. Was it necessary to be so sad to buy a blood-cleansing pill? If it was so painful, then don't buy it. Uncle Rock, buy a blood-cleansing pill. What? Yi Sherwin's body was heaving from crying. At this moment, Yi Sherwin's hand was held. She turned her head and saw that it was a rabbit with drooping ears. I don't want it. Let's go. Hearing this, Yi Sherwin could not help but be stunned. Why? I don't want you to cry. You said we're good friends. Rabbit's drooping head suddenly lifted, revealing a face with snot and tears. We're good friends. I don't want you to cry. Being a worry-free SSS, worry-free little rabbit is pretty good. Rabbit, I can buy it for you. No, let's go and make money. When we have money in the future, we can buy a lot of delicious food for you, the rabbit said, wiping away her tears and looking at Yi Sherwin solemnly. Yi Sherwin was stunned as he stared at the rabbit. Rabbit! Rabbit nodded heavily. Rock sighed when he saw this. He stretched out his hand and a red pill appeared in his palm. How about this? Your talent in alchemy is not bad. Stay here and refine pills for me for 2 months, and I'll give this blood-cleansing pill to you. There's no need. We'll be rich in the future, and we'll be able to buy anything, said the rabbit stubbornly. As it spoke, it wanted to drag Yi Sherwin away. At this moment, Yi Sherwin broke free from the rabbit's grip and reached out to grab the red pill in Rock's hand. Thank you, Uncle Rock. I'll work hard. Yi Sherwin bowed to Rock Ghost King. Don't be too happy yet. You have to complete a fixed amount of tasks every day. If you make a mistake in refining the medicine and cause a loss, the time will be extended. And, Uncle Rock, I'll work hard. Yi Sherwin nodded solemnly. After saying this, she turned to look at the rabbit, and a smile appeared on her tear-stained face. Then, she handed the pill to the rabbit. Silly rabbit, here you go. I don't want it. Give it back to him. Let's go earn money, said the rabbit stubbornly as she looked at Yi Sherwin. Think about it. If you become the godly rabbit, won't we earn money faster? Yi Sherwin continued with a smile. Hearing this, the rabbit couldn't help but be stunned. Then, it leaped into Yi Sherwin's arms and rubbed its head against her chest. It's so nice of you to treat me like this. No one has ever treated me so well. Hee, right? That's why we have to earn more money after becoming the godly rabbit. You promised to buy me a lot of delicious food, said Yi Sherwin with a grin. And the rabbit hugged Yi Sherwin and nodded vigorously. Looking at the human and rabbit, Rock Ghost King shook his head, then walked towards the players who were refining medicine. Holding the red pill, the rabbit was very nervous, and so was Yi Sherwin. In fact, Yi Sherwin knew that the probability of success was very low, but she still had high hopes for the rabbit. Will I become the godly rabbit after eating it? The rabbit looked conflicted as she held the pill. And eat it. Just eat it. Yi Sherwin nodded vigorously. Hearing this, the rabbit stuffed the red pill into its mouth, then closed its eyes tightly and began to wait. The moment the red pill entered the rabbit's mouth, a powerful medicinal effect spread out, turning into a blood-colored liquid that slid down the rabbit's throat into its stomach. Then, the medicinal effect spread throughout the body, fusing into the blood, and began to awaken the power in the bloodline. The rabbit instantly felt hot all over as if its blood was boiling. However, this feeling only lasted for less than a minute before it quickly cooled down and disappeared. When the rabbit opened its eyes again, it hurriedly looked at itself. There seemed to be no change at all. I'm still a little white rabbit. Did I fail? The rabbit lowered its head dejectedly. Wow. Rabbit, your ancestor is the moon rabbit who batters medicine. Ye Sherwin exclaimed as she looked at the rabbit with bright eyes. The rabbit looked at Ye Sherwin with a dumbfounded expression. It did not understand what Ye Sherwin meant at all. However, in Ye Sherwin's eyes, the rabbit's analysis menu had completely changed. Herb battering rabbit, jungle rabbit. Creature details. Contains a thin bloodline of the heavenly realm's godly, moon rabbit, can be enhanced with special spiritual materials and pills. Born with the ability to find spiritual materials and accurately distinguish the medicinal effects contained in spiritual materials. The best assistance for an alchemist. Creature abilities. Spiritual material search, spiritual material identification, accurately measure the age, weight, and other data of spiritual materials. Creature characteristics. This kind of creature is almost extinct in the three realms due to its natural strong curiosity and honest personality. Official notification. Please protect endangered animals. Wow, rabbit, you really have the bloodline of a godly beast. Ye Sherwin shouted excitedly. Looking at the excited Ye Sherwin, the rabbit gradually became excited as well. Then, it stood up and waved its fists in the air. Have I become stronger? Have I become stronger? No. The smile on the rabbit's face instantly froze. But you really have the bloodline of a godly beast. Ye Sherwin's eyes were filled with little stars at this moment. At this moment, Rock's figure appeared beside Ye Sherwin. At this moment, his gaze toward the rabbit was also filled with astonishment and shock. Uncle Rock, the rabbit succeeded, Ye Sherwin said excitedly. F***ck, really? You're actually a herb battering rabbit? Aren't you extinct? Rock still had a look of disbelief on his face. It's true. Before the rabbit could speak, Ye Sherwin answered excitedly. You're rich. With this rabbit, you can directly skip the steps of measuring the weight and dosage of medicinal materials in the future when you refine medicine. This rabbit's natural ability is to identify medicinal materials, and it's a top-notch one at that. Looking at the dumbfounded rabbit, Rock felt a pang in his liver. Such a stupid rabbit actually had such a high-level bloodline and was really the descendant of a godly beast. To Rock, this was simply inconceivable. Although the herb battering rabbit's natural ability did not have any combat enhancement effect, in the eyes of an alchemist like Rock, the value of the herb battering rabbit was immeasurable. In the profession of alchemists, the top-notch ability to identify medicinal materials required the accumulation of an enormous amount of knowledge about medicine refinement. Even Rock himself, who had studied medicine refinement for tens of thousands of years, was only close to high level in terms of identifying spiritual materials. He was still very far from the level of a master. However, the herb battering rabbit was different. It was born to be a top-notch expert in identifying spiritual materials. This was the ability bestowed by the moon rabbit's bloodline. With such a rabbit, one could not only skip too many complicated steps in refining medicine, but they could also save a large amount of medicinal materials. This was equivalent to indirectly saving money for the alchemist. The refinement of high-level medicine required the consumption of large amounts of precious spiritual materials each time. If one failed, the loss would undoubtedly be enormous. However, with the herb battering rabbit, the success rate would increase by at least 30%. This was because the herb battering rabbit could accurately measure the quantity of the medicinal materials. The rest was up to the alchemist. For an alchemist, it was not an exaggeration to say that the herb battering rabbit was the strongest support. At this moment, Rock really wanted to catch this rabbit and keep it in a pen. It didn't become stronger? The rabbit asked with a dazed expression. No, but you will make a lot of money in the future, Rock said with a smile. There was a certain longing in his eyes as he looked at the rabbit. The rabbit could not help but perk up its ears in alarm. Hearing that it would make a lot of money, the rabbit immediately became excited again. However, after thinking about it carefully, wasn't the reason it made money to become stronger and then challenge Dog? But if it could not become stronger, what was the point of making money? Something seemed wrong here. Hee hee, you're a mythological beast anyway. Yi Sherwin could not help but rub the rabbit's little head as he said happily. Then do I have any powerful skills? For example, the rhinoceros bull on the neighboring mountain. It can drink the water of an entire river in one gulp. The rabbit asked with a look of anticipation. Pancher shook his head and took out a stalk of spiritual material. Then, he said, "What is this?" When the rabbit heard this, it subconsciously sniffed the spiritual material, then said, "What is this?" Gold spirit flower, a first-grade spiritual material, 21 years old, 231 grams in weight, high quality, commonly grown in. The rabbit subconsciously blurted out. At this moment, even the rabbit itself was stunned, because it did not recognize this spiritual material at all. In fact, it was certain that it had never seen this type of spiritual material before. However, when it saw this plant, specific information about this plant automatically appeared in its mind. It was as if there was a huge database of knowledge in its mind, and the moment it saw this spiritual material, the relevant knowledge appeared in its mind. "This is my ability?" the rabbit asked with a constipated expression. "That's right, this is one of your abilities. You also have the ability to search for spiritual materials." "I'm going to die. My ability is too useless. I'm going to die." At this moment, the rabbit could not help but fall to the ground and start wailing. "Rabbit, you're a mythological beast." Yi Sherwin blinked. "What's the use of a mythological beast that can't fight?" The rabbit turned to look at Yi Sherwin, then continued to lie on the ground and flop. "Not really. As the concentration of your bloodline increases, so will your physique. After all, you have the bloodline of the moon rabbit. No matter how weak you are, you're still a mythological beast. You'll definitely be good at fighting," Rock said with a smile as he looked at the rabbit. "Really?" The rabbit immediately raised its head. "Really. As long as you have enough blood-cleansing pills, your future will be limitless. Ha ha ha, as expected, I'm gifted. I'm a mythological rabbit." The rabbit immediately stood up proudly. At this moment, Rock turned to look at Yi Sherwin and said, "Come back and be a medicine refiner. With this rabbit, your future in medicine refinement will be limitless as well." Yi Sherwin could not help but shake her head when she heard this. After all, she had always thought of herself as an explorer. Medicine refinement and whatnot were enough for her as an amateur. "Uncle Rock, let's do it for 2 months. I'm going on an adventure in 2 months. Looking at Yi Sherwin's determined expression, Rock could not help but sigh. He could not understand why such a good seedling would not think about improving herself. However, with this rabbit's ability, Rock felt that Yi Sherwin would probably be able to obtain a lot of spiritual materials in her future adventures. This really made the tree envious. Thinking that Yi Sherwin would have to work for him for 2 months, which meant that this rabbit would also be ordered around by him for 2 months, Rock felt a sense of satisfaction in his heart. With the rabbit's assistance, he could definitely make use of these 2 months to refine some high-grade elixirs in bulk. He would make a killing. Then work hard in these 2 months. Right, as long as you complete the daily quota, you can also refine some other elixirs and sell them. I'll provide the spiritual materials. Of course, if you fail, you'll have to bear the losses yourself. Thank you, Uncle Rock. The rabbit hopped to Yi Sherwin's side and said excitedly, "Then let's begin. I want to earn money. I want to become the richest rabbit." Yi Sherwin smiled sweetly when she heard this and reached out to pat the rabbit's head. Just then, a game notification appeared in Yi Sherwin's mind. Game notification. Your affinity with the herb-tampering rabbit has reached 100 points. Do you wish to sign a contract with it and activate the pet affinity bar? The appearance of the game notification stunned Yi Sherwin. In fact, one of Yi Sherwin's biggest worries was the rabbit's safety. After all, the rabbit was not a player and had no ability to revive. It would always be in danger if it followed her. After all, the players had too many enemies. Perhaps one day, The mansion of the dead would once again be destroyed by a strong enemy. She could not guarantee the rabbit's safety. Therefore, Ye Sherwin could not help but feel excited when the game notification appeared. At this thought, Ye Sherwin asked the rabbit, "Rabbit, do you want to follow me from now on?" "Yes, we're good friends." The rabbit nodded without hesitation.